Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San. Chapters 861 through 880 of the previous episode. The three great demon races, dragons, phoenixes, and behemoths, maintained a tense power balance until the Crystal Demon Emperor's death created a power vacuum. This instability spurred the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor to propose a marriage alliance between Mei Gongzi of the Peacock Demon Clan and the behemoth heir, Donghua. The goal was to unify their influence and secure the demon continent's future. However, Mei Gongzi vehemently rejected the proposal, prioritizing her loyalty to Tang San. This refusal, coupled with the revelation of her human hybrid heritage, strained the ancestral court's delicate political landscape. Despite the opposition, Mei Gongzi's immense talent, nurtured by Tang San and amplified by her mastery of the celestial plume, solidified her rise. Tang San, meanwhile, continues his secret work, establishing a human nation on overseas islands while purging the Sea Plague to earn the Sea Clan's allegiance. As the political struggle intensifies, Tang San prepares to confront the ancestral court's emperors to ensure humanity's survival. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San audio series. Chapter 881. A clan without an emperor declaring war on one that had an emperor. This had never happened before in the history of the demon continent. Leave Adamant City? To nymphs who knew a little about the Blue Gold Tree clan, this seemed like a joke. However, some cautious types began to hesitate, wondering if they should indeed leave. After all, this was a conflict between two clans. No matter how weak the Blue Gold Tree clan was, they were still rulers of a main city. If two first-tier clans truly clashed, wouldn't innocents get caught in the crossfire? The Adamant Nymph Emperor hadn't immediately come out to deal with them, meaning that he likely wasn't even in the city. To be cautious, it might be best to leave for a while and watch how things unfolded. While using an artifact in the city lord's mansion to contact the Adamant Nymph Emperor Jin Chenggu, glared at Tang San, eyes blazing with anger. Whether or not the Blue Gold Tree clan could pose a real threat, just the fact that Tang San had declared war would have a massive impact on the Adamant Nymph clan, especially in terms of reputation. A clan like the Blue Gold Tree clan had dared to declare war upon them, and an extermination war at that. What did this imply? More importantly, if this matter reached the ancestral court, the Adamant Nymph clan could not even complain. The 12-hour deadline wasn't just a window for the Adamant Nymph clan to respond, it was also enough time for the message to reach the ancestral court. The Adamant Nymph Emperor would have time to return, and the other emperors in the ancestral court would also have enough time to arrive. Then Jin Chenggu began to understand Tang San's plan. How cunning! They never intended to actually fight. They're just using the situation to force the ancestral court to punish Adamant City. Given that the ancestral court published that decree a while back, they are forced to provide some resolution to the Blue Gold Tree clan. And after that, if these people retreat back to Skytree City, what can we do? Jin Chenggu knew about the time the Adamant Nymph Emperor had suffered a defeat in Skytree City, and was under no illusions that the Adamant Nymph clan, or any other clan for that matter, could destroy the Blue Gold Tree clan in their own territory. The Adamant Nymph clan's reputation will surely take a massive blow from this incident. Afterward, the Blue Gold Tree clan can use this tactic to pressure other cities into returning their people. This must be his plan. What a cunning move. This new Blue Gold Tree clan leader is no simple figure. Jin Chenggu believed it had figured out Tang San's intentions, but at this moment, there was nothing it could do. It could only relay everything that had happened as quickly as possible to the Adamant Nymph Emperor and wait for the latter's decision. Earlier, when Tang San and the Blue Gold Tree clan elders summoned the Ancestral Tree's projection, it had been truly terrifying. Even as a great nymph king, Jin Chenggu had felt powerless against it. At this point, he didn't dare risk launching an attack on Tang San and the others. Soon, 5 more Adamant Nymph kings arrived, as well as another great nymph king. There were now almost 20 in total, representing all of Adamant City's god-level experts. They were fewer in numbers than the Blue Gold Tree gods, but combat power was something else entirely. The Ancestral Tree's blessing made it easy for them to cultivate, but before Tang San's arrival, even with double the numbers, the Blue Gold Tree clan could never match the Adamant Nymph clan. Even if the Adamant Nymphs just stood there and let themselves be hit, The blue gold trees couldn't even break through their defense. Jin Miaosan sat beside Tang San, a hint of anxiety in her eyes. She hadn't thought about things as deeply as Jin Chenggu had. Instead, she was simply proud. At the very least, her brother had done what no previous Blue Gold Tree clan leader had ever achieved. He had truly brought hope and light to their clan. But soon her worry started to grow. 12 hours, was that too long? Although they could rely on the ancestral tree's imprint for strength, would that be enough to face an emperor? An emperor was on a different level altogether from a mere great nymph king. And 12 hours was more than enough time for the adamant nymph emperor to return from the ancestral court. What if, instead of avenging their people, they ended up trapped themselves? Thinking of this, Jin Miaosan became anxious and whispered to Tang San, "Big brother, why not act now? If we use the ancestral tree's power, we might really be able to hit them hard. But if the adamant nymph emperor returns, it could get tricky." Tang San opened his eyes and looked at her. "Don't worry. We must wait for him to return. Otherwise, this will only be a sneak attack. If the ancestral tree's light is to shine across the land once more, everything must be done openly." Jin Miaosan wanted to say something in response, but the second elder tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Miaosan, don't disturb the clan leader. He knows what he's doing." The elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan, old foxes in their own ways, had also figured out much of what Jin Chenggu had. After their initial shock, they realized that blowing this matter up was actually bound to work to their advantage. They had the moral high ground. Even if the adamant nymph emperor returned, what could it do? Kill them all? With such a commotion, there was absolutely no way the ancestral court could remain unresponsive. Attacking the Blue Gold Tree delegation would be an unforgivable slap to its face. Once the adamant nymph emperor received word, it would surely report to the ancestral court. At the very least, the emperors of the Solstice Empire would know. Then, it all depended on how the ancestral court handled this situation, and what justice they would deliver to the Blue Gold Tree clan. Thus, making a scene was the best option. The more the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan thought about the possible outcomes, the more they admired Tang San. After this upheaval, other major cities would likely return some of their captured clan members, and the Blue Gold Tree clan's status would rise significantly. Their reputation within the Solstice Empire would improve, stabilizing Sky Tree City. As for offending the adamant nymph emperor, their relationship had never been good to begin with. This emperor had already pushed them all the way to their own doorstep, until it was repelled by the ancestral tree. Even without today's confrontation, the adamant nymph clan would hardly ever be friendly toward the Blue Gold Tree clan. Not only could they avenge their fallen, but they could also raise the Blue Gold Tree clan standing and further protect their people. Such an open strategy was by far the most reasonable choice. But even if they had thought of it, none of them would have dared to act as boldly as Tang San had. Even the Grand Elder couldn't have done so. With every moment that passed, the Elder's admiration for Tang San deepened. The Blue Gold Tree clan finally has a true leader. While the Blue Gold Tree clan was more united than ever, the adamant nymph clan was in chaos. Once Jin Chenggu understood the situation, its first priority was to calm the citizens. After Tang San's earlier proclamation, Adamant City had fallen into chaos, with various rumors already beginning to spread. Adamant City was home to more than just the adamant nymph clan. In fact, the adamant nymphs themselves were not particularly numerous. Mineral-type clans in general had few members, since growing sentience as a chunk of rock was rather difficult. At the same time, however, this city housed many such clans, and all were under the leadership of the adamant nymph clan. Weaker nymphs were naturally not qualified to live here, but those that had cultivated from precious gems and metals possessed considerable strength, and such resources were plentiful in the Solstice Empire. Thus, in this massive city, there were well over 100 different nymph clans. Tang San's declaration of war had indeed frightened some of these clans. Within just an hour, Jin Chenggu received reports that the traffic through Adamant City's gates had increased tenfold, and even in front of the main gate there were long lines of nymphs trying to leave. This was bound to severely disrupt the order within Adamant City and deliver a significant blow to its reputation. The stronger clans that had stronger connections with the adamant nymphs remained calm, confident that the Blue Gold Tree clan could never truly threaten them. But some of the weaker clans didn't see it that way. They themselves had often been taken advantage of, and they knew a bit about the situation with the Blue Gold Tree clan. In their eyes, the Blue Gold Tree clan leaders' actions carried a sense of tragic heroism that stirred their hearts. They'd obviously not side with the Blue Gold Tree clan just for that, but they also didn't want to be caught up in the conflict between the two major clans, so they naturally chose to flee the city as the best course of action. Thus many of these smaller clans packed up and left the city. At first, some were still hesitant, but seeing more and more nymphs leaving the city, and thinking there was no harm in going out for the time being, the number of evacuees quickly increased. Soon, all of Adamant City was in chaos. Jin Chenggu could no longer pay attention to Tang San and the Blue Gold Tree clan here. It hurried back to the city lord's mansion, issuing orders non-stop to calm the people. Right now it was suffering in silence. It couldn't tell the people, "We will definitely destroy the Blue Gold Tree clan or drive them away." After all, they were not in the right. It could only announce publicly that they were actively communicating with the Blue Gold Tree clan to clear up the misunderstanding. It added that the Adamant Nymph Emperor was on the way back, and everything would soon return to normal. This statement had some effect, of course, but was it significant? Not really. The number of people leaving the city decreased, but not by any considerable margin. Jin Chenggu considered forcibly stopping them, maybe even closing the city gates. But doing so would undoubtedly cause an even bigger commotion, and that was something they could not afford. Finally, after things had escalated for about 4 hours, with long lines forming at all the city gates, it decided to give up. If they wanted to leave, they had to be allowed to leave. Once the situation was resolved, they would all come back eventually. Jin Chenggu even thought bitterly that when that time came, it would impose heavy taxes at the city gates. If they wanted to return, they'd have to pay. Otherwise, they could forget about coming back. Leaving was easy, but returning wouldn't be so simple. With this idea in mind, it felt much more at ease. The losses they'd inevitably bear once the matter was concluded could be made up later through the entry taxes. It would all balance out eventually. As for the blow to the reputation of the Adamant Nymph clan, that was unavoidable. But as long as the Adamant Nymph Emperor returned, these problems could still be resolved. After all, having an emperor backing you was the most important thing for any clan. With his strength alone, Tang San had stirred up complete chaos in Adamant City. Yet the man himself appeared the most relaxed person around as he calmly sat there in meditation. No one knew what he was thinking, but the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan could feel an increasingly dense life force emanating from him. This immense life energy gave them an unusual sense of reassurance. That was more than enough for them. Tang San was observing the flow of life energy between heaven and earth and slowly absorbed some of it as he cultivated. At the same time, he activated his divine consciousness, using his discerning eye of heaven to observe the changes in his fortune. When he boldly declared war on the Adamant Nymph clan, he could clearly feel his fortune rise once again, and even the fortune of all the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan had improved as well. As an outsider, the biggest problem he faced was being rejected by this plane. This was also why he had to endure the 9 heavens 10 earths divine extinguishing tribulation during his previous tribulation. But now he realized that the plane was increasingly accepting him, and he felt a growing sense of integration with it. This was another benefit the ancestral tree had bestowed upon him. Tang San would never fully accept the ancestral tree's legacy, because if he did, the immense life energy of this planet's source might actually alter his foundations, and he would end up being connected to the plane as if he'd been born here. Then, no matter how strong he became, as long as it was through the power bestowed upon him by the ancestral tree, he could never become a god king again unless he helped the plane become a divine realm first. This plane would become his foundation, one he could never escape from. This was not the outcome Tang San wished to see. He still needed to return to the world he once came from, return to the divine realm where he used to reign. There, his friends and family awaited his return. However, not fully accepting the ancestral tree's legacy didn't mean he couldn't borrow some of it. He still had to become an emperor after all. Now that he had earned the ancestral tree's favor, even presenting himself as its representative, it would make his path to becoming an emperor a bit easier. Of course, this was just one of the preparations he was making. The secret of his success thus far is that he'd never set all his eggs in one basket. At this moment, the Chaos Blue Silver Emperor inside him was absorbing the planet's life source energy, and it was slowly evolving. And even though he had shared some of his chaos energy with the ancestral tree, the amount of chaos energy in the imprint had not diminished, but instead had grown stronger. This was a gift from the ancestral tree in return for the nourishment he had provided earlier. At the same time, all of his bloodline imprints were continuously improving, especially the blue gold tree one, which had reached the peak of the 11th order. With the ancestral tree's imprint supporting it, the blue gold tree clan's bloodline was incredibly powerful, and with the Chaos Blue Silver Emperor as a backing, the two bloodlines had now merged to some extent. The Chaos Blue Silver Emperor was a transcendent bloodline, and even though the blue gold tree clan's bloodline wasn't suited for combat, it was still a first-tier bloodline. The ancestral tree wasn't just an ordinary emperor. Its legacy had continued for many millennia, and it was technically still alive in a sense, so the power of its bloodline was entirely undiminished. A transcendent bloodline serving as the foundation for a first-tier bloodline. This was the source of Tang San's confidence in his current endeavors. After all, when facing emperors, he absolutely could not use his golden armor transformation, lion tiger transformation, or peacock transformation. He could only use abilities related to the blue gold tree clan, at least on the surface, or ones that even emperors wouldn't be able to detect. As Tang San meditated, he made plans in this regard, rehearsing in his mind various scenarios and the items and abilities he would need to use in each case. His identity as Jean Miaolin would need to be used for a long time, and not one single flaw in his disguise could be allowed. And speaking of flaws in his disguise, among the rescued blue gold trees and their remnants, Tang San hadn't found any trace of Jean Miaolin. The reason for his certainty was simple. If Jean Miaolin had been among them, the aura of the ancestral tree's direct bloodline would have been present. None of the clansmen or dead branches had that aura. If he wasn't there, he wasn't there. Tang San would find him eventually. He was not stupid enough to overlook the possibility that Jean Miaolin was still alive. On the contrary, he assumed that Jean Miaolin could very well return while he was still here and was therefore planning accordingly. As time passed second by second, chaos continued in Adamant City. Large numbers of citizens fled the city, and many shops closed their doors. Especially the residents near the city lord's mansion. Even those who had chosen not to leave Adamant City were moving toward the outer city. No one wanted to get caught in the crossfire. Sure, maybe there would be negotiations, but who could guarantee that the two sides wouldn't actually fight? After 10 hours, at least 1/3 of Adamant City's population had chosen to leave the city. Even so, 2/3 still remained. In the eyes of most mineral-type nymphs, the Adamant Nymph clan's power still far surpassed the Blue Gold Tree clans. The 11th hour had just elapsed when two streaks of light shot toward Adamant City from the east, like two burning meteors. When they reached within 1,000 miles of Adamant City, Tang San opened his eyes. Considering the average emperor's speed, if they flew back at full power from the ancestral court, it wouldn't take more than a few hours. Clearly, there must have been a discussion, maybe even an argument, within the ancestral court before they went on their way. Tang San stood up, and the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan beside him finished their meditation, rising to their feet alongside him. By now, Jin Chenggu had returned as well, bringing with it all the god-level powerhouses of the Adamant Nymph clan. Seeing Tang San stand, Jin Chenggu was somewhat surprised, but shortly after, it too sensed a familiar aura. Yet at that moment it didn't feel relieved but shocked. Judging by Tang San's aura, he was also a great nymph king. Moreover, the Blue Gold Tree clan wasn't known for their divine consciousness. Why could Tang San sense it when Jin Chenggu itself couldn't? Moreover, it had sensed them about a minute later than Tang San. Considering the speed at which emperors flew, this meant that the Blue Gold Tree clan leader's divine consciousness was far superior to his own. By this point, the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan had also sensed the two approaching presences. One of them was like a great sun descending, carrying a majestic aura and powerful pressure. The other exuded a more elusive yet all-pervasive sense of intimidation, even deeper than the first. There was no doubt it was not just one emperor but two. Realizing that two emperors were coming, the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan felt their hearts settle. This was certainly much better than facing the Adamant Nymph Emperor alone. The fact that another emperor had returned with him clearly indicated that the ancestral court had mobilized and wouldn't leave them to face the Adamant Nymph Emperor on their own. Just as their minds were filled with various speculations, the two figures descended from the sky, landing directly between the two hostile groups. The arrival of the two emperors brought with it an overwhelming divine consciousness that instantly suppressed the aura of all the god-level powerhouses present. The one on the left was fully encased in brilliant golden armor. At a closer look, the armor was not actually metallic but crystalline. When it landed, its entire body seemed to fuse with the earth, becoming one with it, or rather, more accurately, becoming its master. This was clearly none other than the indestructible adamant nymph emperor, ranked 6th among the 7 nymph emperors of the Solstice Empire. The other was draped in a black cloak, and on the cloak, countless eyes seemed to shimmer dimly. Just looking at it gave one a sense of dizziness. This figure was tall and slender, standing around 2 meters tall, with pale skin and a strikingly handsome face that looked in every way like that of a human male. He exuded an aura of intense mystery, and his divine consciousness was elusive yet omnipresent. Though he stood alongside the adamant nymph emperor, there was an invisible sense of dominance about him. Even the golden light radiating from the adamant nymph emperor's crystal armor vanished as it neared his presence. Tang San hadn't met all of the emperors yet, and this was his first time seeing these two. But from their auras it was quite clear who they were. The adamant nymph emperor's companion was the 4th-ranked nymph emperor, the animator of the inanimate, the soul capturer nymph emperor. He was the clan leader of the soul capturer tree lineage, and an immensely powerful being. It was even rumored that his level of divine consciousness was on par with that of the Sunborn nymph emperor and the Earthshade nymph emperor. His control over divine consciousness was particularly unique. The soul capturer trees were, of course, tree-type nymphs. They were also the descendants of the ancestral tree, and benefited from the ancestral tree's blessings just like all their kindred. The fact that the ancestral court had sent the soul capturer nymph emperor alongside the adamant nymph emperor indicated that they intended to protect the blue gold tree clan, at least to some extent. As soon as the adamant nymph emperor landed, its gaze swept toward Tang San and the elders of the blue gold tree clan. At the same time, its powerful divine consciousness crashed over them like a tidal wave. Although the elders of the blue gold tree clan had been confident earlier, when they saw the two emperors arriving, they couldn't help but feel uneasy. They all lowered their heads. Jean Miaosan tried to raise her head and look at them but was unable to resist the immense pressure. Only Tang San stood there calmly, unfazed by the adamant nymph emperor's overwhelming divine pressure. Ahem ahem. A light cough sounded, and the adamant nymph emperor's pressure dissipated. It was the soul capturer nymph emperor who had coughed. Adamant, that's enough. Let's figure out the situation first. The adamant nymph emperor glanced at him before turning back toward Tang San. Who are you to come to Adamant City and stir up trouble? Tang San finally spoke. He gave a slight bow and said calmly, Jean Miaolan, clan leader of the Blue Gold Tree Clan, greets both your majesties. You are the new leader of the Blue Gold Tree Clan? The adamant nymph emperor asked coldly. Yes, Tang San replied, standing tall. At this moment, the elders of the Blue Gold Tree Clan all felt that as long as their leader was present, even the emperors on the other side couldn't suppress them. And you're the one who killed my clan's nymph king? The adamant nymph emperor pressed on. Tang San replied, That is correct. How dare you? The adamant nymph emperor roared in fury, its immense divine consciousness crashing toward Tang San. Now let's talk it out, no need to get angry, the soul capturer nymph emperor said, his large cloak billowing as he blocked the adamant nymph emperor's divine consciousness. The adamant nymph emperor turned its head to look at him. Soul capturer, what do you mean? The soul capturer nymph emperor smiled and said, What do you mean? The ancestral court sent me as a neutral party to help settle the conflict between you people. So let's get the facts straight first and avoid fighting. You know what the ancestral court said. They want both sides to settle this peacefully. The adamant nymph emperor responded coldly. This so-called leader of the Blue Gold Tree Clan came to my adamant city and slaughtered one of my clansmen, and a 10th order one at that. How could I tolerate that? The soul capturer nymph emperor kept smiling and said, Let's hear his side of the story. Clan leader Jean, please explain what happened. Why did you resort to killing? Tang San nodded slightly and said, As you well know, not long ago, the ancestral court sent an envoy to Skytree City, recognizing my status as city lord and instructing me to report to the ancestral court. I also informed the ancestral court that I would be visiting the main cities on my way there to look for my lost clansmen. Thus, on my way there, I stopped by Adamant City and asked to meet Its Majesty the Adamant so we could greet it properly. Upon entering the city, we were informed that Its Majesty was not present. Deputy City Lord Jin Chenggu brought us to what it said was the City Lord's guest house, though to me it looked more like an ordinary inn. Knowing full well that we are wood attribute nymphs, it placed us in a building constructed entirely of fire attribute materials. The intense fire energy within it affected both me and my clansmen. Your Majesty's soul capturer, as a wood attribute nymph yourself, you should understand how uncomfortable this situation must have been for us. The soul capturer nymph emperor glanced at the adamant nymph emperor and then at Jin Chenggu, who stood quietly in the distance and did not show any expression on its face. He then nodded and said, "Indeed, that was a breach of etiquette." The adamant nymph emperor, however, responded with a murderous look. "And that's your reason for killing it?" Tang San shook his head. "Of course not. We chose to endure. After all, we were outsiders. And I am merely the acting city lord. Since I have yet to undergo my evaluation at the ancestral court, even if the adamant nymph clan didn't treat me with the courtesy of a city lord, I had no complaints. But my clan members found it hard to withstand the fire energy in that place. I absorbed some of it so they could be more comfortable. It was then that your fire adamant nymph king became enraged and attacked me. Whether as city lord or clan leader, the ancestral court's rules state that if one is attacked, one may retaliate. Facing such a powerful nymph king, and a fire attribute one at that, I had no choice but to fight with all my strength. I accidentally killed it in the process." "You're lying. You killed all the fire attribute nymphs there." Jin Chenggu finally couldn't hold back. Tang San responded calmly. "When two gods clash, there are always some aftershocks. Collateral damage is inevitable. Blame the one who attacked first. He had the proper status. As long as he maintained the moral high ground, nothing else truly mattered." The adamant nymph emperor looked at Tang San with icy eyes, but Tang San continued, "Also, that is not the most important problem. Earlier, I repeatedly asked Deputy City Lord Jin if any of my clan members were being detained in Adamant City. He assured me there weren't any. However, under the radiance of the ancestral tree, I discovered more than 100 of my clan members. Or maybe I should say I discovered 10 of my clansmen and the remains of another 90. A third of them were found in the city lord's mansion. May I ask you, Your Majesty, if you were aware of this? I would also like His Majesty's soul capturer to bear witness." The presence of the two emperors certainly intimidated the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan, but to a former god king, it was nothing. He had seen far greater challenges, and in terms of presence, he was not at all inferior to the adamant nymph emperor. "Humph." The adamant nymph emperor snorted angrily but offered no explanation. The facts were laid bare, and it had no way to explain them. At this moment, the soul capturer nymph emperor stepped forward, positioning himself between the two sides. He smiled at Tang San and said, "Clan leader Jin, we understand your feelings, and the ancestral court deeply regrets and sympathizes with the tragedy that occurred. But what's done is done, and we need to find a way to resolve this. Both the Adamant Nymph clan and the Blue Gold Tree clan are important parts of our Solstice Empire and crucial members of the ancestral court. Skytree City and Adamant City are neighbors. Indeed, Adamant City was in the wrong this time, and the ancestral court held an emergency meeting because of it. You may present your demands, and we will assist in negotiating with Its Majesty the Adamant to find terms both sides can accept as compensation for the Blue Gold Tree clan. What do you think?" Hearing the soul capturer nymph emperor's words, the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan couldn't help but relax. The adamant nymph emperor's imposing intimidation earlier had truly kicked their hearts up into their throats. All beings naturally feared emperors, the supreme beings of their world. But Tang San had held firm under the pressure, standing his ground with reason and logic and leaving the adamant nymph emperor with no way to retaliate. Now, with the soul capturer nymph emperor providing a way out for both sides while clearly favoring the Blue Gold Tree clan, they felt much more at ease. Killing a god-level member of the Adamant Nymph clan and causing Adamant City's reputation to plummet, along with the exodus of numerous mineral-type nymphs, was bound to result in significant losses for Adamant City. If substantial compensation could be provided as well, This would undoubtedly be a major victory for the Blue Gold Tree clan, one that would restore their pride. But the next moment, they were stunned to see Tang San shaking his head. Tang San looked at the soul capturer nymph emperor and said, "Your Majesty, I appreciate your mediation, but what I want to say is that life is priceless, far more so to my clansmen than to any other being on this planet. Our Blue Gold Tree clan reveres life, and the ancestral tree has brought the radiance of life to the demon continent, allowing plants to thrive. But now others are using our clan members, even while they are still alive, as cultivation materials to enhance themselves. If we accepted material compensation for such heinous acts, then would we not, in effect, agree that our lives have a set price?" Upon hearing this, even the soul capturer nymph emperor was taken aback. The ancestral court and the Solstice Empire had ultimately decided to send him along with the adamant nymph emperor to show some favor toward the Blue Gold Tree clan. But neither he nor the adamant nymph emperor saw the Blue Gold Tree clan as a real threat, given that they didn't have an emperor. If not for the alleged awakening of the ancestral tree, the ancestral court likely wouldn't have even sent him. What could the Blue Gold Trees do to the adamant nymphs? Were they really going to declare war? That would be suicidal. He truly hadn't expected Tang San to take such a hard stance. "Then what do you want?" the adamant nymph emperor's cold voice echoed. Tang San turned to him and said solemnly, "A blood debt must be repaid in blood. The blood of my clan members cannot be shed in vain. We can talk about compensation later. On behalf of the Blue Gold Tree clan, I challenge you to a life and death duel." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire scene fell into dead silence. Every powerhouse present, including the soul capturer nymph emperor, stared at Tang San in utter disbelief. The elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan, who had just started to relax, felt their hearts leap into their throats again. What was their clan leader doing? He was challenging an emperor? And not just any emperor, but one renowned for being indestructible. How is this possible? How could this even be happening? The soul capturer nymph emperor even thought he had misheard, that something was wrong with his ears. As for the adamant nymph emperor, its face was hidden by the armor, but it was no less astonished. "No negotiations? A direct challenge? And challenging an emperor no less? Where did this young sapling get this courage? This wasn't Skytree City. Even if the ancestral tree had some power that could be borrowed, its main body wasn't here. Moreover, although it had awakened to some extent, it was clearly not fully awake, so how much could it assist him? For a great nymph king who wasn't even skilled in combat to challenge an emperor, this was no different from a fool's delusion. But regardless of what those present thought, Tang San's words had already been spoken. He stood there, gazing calmly at the adamant nymph emperor, the firmness in his heart clearly visible. This was obviously not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Jean Miaosen couldn't care less about the pressure of the two emperors anymore. She rushed over to Tang San in a few quick steps, grabbed his arm and said anxiously, "Big brother, have you gone mad? How could you challenge an emperor?" Tang San spoke in a deep voice. "The blood of our clan members cannot be shed in vain. Our Blue Gold Tree clan has been oppressed for so many years. Do you really think it's because we're bad at fighting? We have at least twice as many king-level members as the Adamant Nymph clan. And yet, even with such strength, we never dared to resist. Why? What made our people retreat and hide? It's because we've lost our courage. A clan without courage, no matter how rich in resources, is doomed to perish. And today, even if I die, I will use my blood to awaken the spirit of my clan. I will show all the weaker clans that even when facing an emperor, we must have the courage to challenge them. As the leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan, if I don't have the courage to protect my people, then who will? Before coming here, I had already decided that if I found any evidence of the Adamant Nymph clan abducting or imprisoning my clan members, I would not hesitate to fight them to the death. Your Majesty's Soul Capturer, I will ask you to bear witness. If I die, please inform the Ancestral Court that the Blue Gold Tree clan will never cower again, least of all when it comes to our people's survival. If one Jean Miolan falls, 10 more Jean Myalans will rise to fight for the Blue Gold Tree clan. And if 10 die, 100 will rise. Anyone who dares to capture our people will face our endless vengeance. Tang San's words were spoken with absolute conviction, and the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan, who had been filled with anxiety, now found their eyes reddening. His words struck right at the heart of the problem. Despite their life force being incredibly strong and granting them a tough body, they never dared to fight back, eventually falling to the point where any clan could bully them, and they didn't even dare leave the inner city. At this moment, as they heard the determination in Tang San's tone, even the blood of these elders started to boil. Jin Miaosan let go of Tang San's arm, his body trembling as tears uncontrollably flowed down his face. "Big brother, you're right. I am sorry. We've been far too cowardly. I, Jin Miaosan, swear that if my brother dies today, I will fight for the Blue Gold Tree clan at all costs, until my last breath. We will fight for the Blue Gold Tree clan at all costs until our last breath." The voices of the Blue Gold Tree clan's elders varied, but in this moment, they were all filled with unshakable resolve. Even the second and third elders, who were quite advanced in age, had their eyes brimming with tears. The Blue Gold Tree clan had been oppressed for far too long. At this moment, Tang San's words had completely ignited their dormant spirits. At this moment, the Blue Gold Tree clan had truly risen, sensing the unified spirit emanating from them. The soul capturer Nymph Emperor couldn't help but be moved. The Blue Gold Tree clan had truly found themselves a great leader. Though his decision was anything but wise, if this leader were to die here today, it would have an extraordinary impact on the entire Blue Gold Tree clan, especially with the ancestral tree now awakened. Great changes were likely coming for this clan. The adamant Nymph Emperor in the meantime was clenching its fists. On the way back, the soul capturer Nymph Emperor had been advising it the whole time. After all, what the various clans had done to the Blue Gold Trees was not only dishonorable, but outright illegal. Now that things were out in the open, it was best to take a step back. After all, Adamant City was wealthy enough to offer compensation to the Blue Gold Tree clan, and that way everyone could save face, turning a massive issue into a solvable one. The adamant Nymph Emperor felt as if it had swallowed a fly. He was an emperor, how could it easily lower its head? That's why, upon return, it had tried to intimidate Tang San. But who could have predicted that its intimidation would have no effect at all? Tang San had calmly and logically stated his case. Then, when the soul capturer Nymph Emperor had stepped in to mediate, it had grudgingly accepted. After all, among the 7 emperors of the Solstice Empire, plant-type emperors were the most numerous, and many had benefited from the ancestral tree's blessings. But what it had never expected was that this young leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan would refuse to take the easy way out and instead choose to stand his ground. Of course, it didn't think Tang San could defeat it, but killing this young leader would bring its own set of troubles. It would be hard to explain to the ancestral court, not to mention that after Tang San's speech, the Blue Gold Tree clan would be in an uproar. The conflict between the two clans had already escalated into a full-blown crisis, and it would only be worse. Though it was an emperor and therefore unafraid, the awakening of the ancestral tree made it cautious. If the Blue Gold Tree clan were to cultivate an emperor of their own, things could get truly troublesome. The ancestral court had already sensed a shift in the balance of power due to the awakening of the ancestral tree. The celestial fox demon emperor, who represented the entire Empyrean dominion, was clearly supporting the Blue Gold Tree clan. This would undoubtedly have a significant impact on Adamant City. So whether it won or lost, this battle would be bad for Adamant City. But at this point it was already riding a tiger and couldn't back down. Clan leader Jean, I understand how you feel, but it's better to resolve enmities than to deepen them. Both you and its majesty the Adamant are pillars of the ancestral court. Killing each other will only give outsiders a reason to laugh. I guarantee you that the Adamant Nymph clan will provide you with a proper explanation and sufficient compensation. The soul capturer Nymph Emperor was still trying to mediate. No need. Thank you for your kindness, your majesty soul capturer, but my mind is made up. The moment I saw the remains of my clan members, there was no way for me to do anything else. Others may retreat, but as the clan leader, I can only go forward. Seeing the resolute expression on Tang San's face, the soul capturer Nymph Emperor frowned. Although he was an emperor, these kinds of disputes between clans were difficult to intervene in. After all, the adamant Nymph Emperor was clearly in the wrong. Now, Tang San wasn't asking for compensation but issuing a direct challenge, one that could not be avoided, especially since the challenger was not an emperor himself. According to the laws of the ancestral court, as long as Tang San insisted, this battle was inevitable. There's no need to bother with him anymore, Soul Capturer. Since he doesn't know his place, I'll give him a proper lesson and show him how the world works, the adamant nymph emperor said, its eyes filled with murderous intent. It had already been stewing in anger. A month back, when it sensed the ancestral tree's awakening, it went looking for an opportunity. Who would have thought that, instead of gaining anything, it would be sent flying by a strike from the newly awakened ancestral tree? That strike had been quite powerful too. A sudden burst of energy that the ancestral tree had accumulated for who knew how many centuries. Naturally, it dared not make further attempts on Skytree City. It was worried about the possibility of the ancestral tree fully awakening. If that happened, it was bound to turn into a huge problem. So, he retreated to the ancestral court to heal. But soon, it heard from the envoy sent to Skytree City that while the ancestral tree's awakening seemed real, it was incomplete. It had some measure of sentience, but it wasn't truly back. This reassured it, and it planned to return to Adamant City once its wounds had healed. Normally, it didn't stay in the ancestral court often, preferring to reside in Adamant City. The Adamant Nymph clan had always been running short on life energy, and with Adamant City neighboring Skytree City, it was rather convenient. It could simply make a trip every now and then and get some life energy from there. As for the blue gold trees in its mansion, they had been captured by it personally, including some nymph king ones. But before it could finish healing, the blue gold tree clan had come knocking on Adamant City's door, killed its people, and rescued all their clan members. The Adamant Nymph Emperor, of course, was in the wrong, but it didn't see it that way. From its perspective, the Blue Gold Tree clan had interfered with its cultivation and tarnished the reputation of the Adamant Nymph clan. But this matter couldn't be covered up. Every main city had eyes from the ancestral court watching. With no other choice, it had to report the situation to the ancestral court itself. The seriousness of this matter was something the ancestral court was fully aware of. The awakening of the ancestral tree, even if not complete, still meant that one of the three revered ancestors of nymphs had returned. For something to happen to the descendants of the ancestral tree, and for it to become a public issue, was no small matter. A single misstep could spark an uproar among plant-type nymphs. Thus, after urgent consultations, the ancestral court had sent Soul Capturer to accompany it back. Along the way, Soul Capturer had tried to persuade it many times. If a problem could be solved with money, then was it really a problem? With Adamant City being so wealthy, a bit of compensation wouldn't empty their coffers, so it begrudgingly agreed. But there was still resentment in its heart. Thus, upon returning, it tried to intimidate Tang San, only to find that the young leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan was not only ungrateful for the opportunity but even demanded to challenge him. How long had he even been the leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan? He had barely awakened the ancestral tree, and now he already dared to bring his clansmen here to cause trouble. This kind of person could not be allowed to live. If he were to become an emperor in the future, he would become a grave threat. With this in mind, the Adamant Nymph Emperor's heart was filled with murderous intent, and in spite of knowing there would be consequences, it had no intention of showing mercy. The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor frowned and said, "I know what you are thinking, but this is not appropriate. This isn't what the ancestral court wants to see." The Adamant Nymph Emperor replied coldly, "It's not about what I want anymore. He's the one pushing for this challenge. As an emperor, I have my dignity to uphold. Can I just refuse his challenge? Tell me, Soul Capturer, what should I do?" You. Seeing that neither side was willing to back down, the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor felt helpless. After all, the Adamant Nymph Emperor was an emperor and represented all mineral-type nymphs. Could he really refuse the challenge in front of so many subordinates? On the other hand, Tang San, as the leader of a city and a clan, was seeking revenge for his people, which was even more understandable. The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor sighed and said to the Adamant Nymph Emperor, "Then I must ask you to show some mercy. After all, the ancestral tree has awakened. This is a great joy for all of us plant-type nymphs. Without the ancestral tree, we wouldn't have anything today. So no matter what happens, please, for the sake of the ancestral tree and our old friendship, show some restraint." The adamant nymph emperor nodded. Among the 7 nymph emperors, the strongest 4 were all plant type, and the parasol tree nymph emperor and the soul capturer nymph emperor were both tree-type nymphs with deep connections to the ancestral tree. That was not to say that these powerful emperors had never targeted the Blue Gold Tree clan, but they were obligated to openly support this ancestral lineage, and they did make good on that obligation. Otherwise, the Blue Gold Tree clan would not have been able to hold their position as a main city's rulers once they lost their emperor. If he were to strike at Tang San today, the soul capturer nymph emperor would likely try to intervene. But the adamant nymph emperor had absolute confidence. Once the fight started, killing a great nymph king or gravely injuring him wouldn't be difficult. To the adamant nymph emperor, Tang San's challenge seemed utterly foolish. If Tang San had left today and accepted compensation, he would have gotten away with it. But by choosing to challenge an emperor, he was jumping into the fire of his own free will. The adamant nymph emperor cast a cold glance at Tang San and said, "We'll fight in the sky." As it spoke, it soared upward, transforming into a ball of golden light as it shot into the sky. Choosing to battle in the sky was, of course, to prevent the aftershocks from affecting the city. In truth, the adamant nymph emperor, being a pure earth attribute nymph, could only exert its full strength on the ground. But did it really need its full strength to fight a mere great nymph king? Especially since the Blue Gold Tree clan was not known for their combat prowess. Tang San bowed slightly to the soul capturer nymph emperor once again and said, "Thank you for your assistance, your majesty soul capturer." He then turned to the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan, whose faces were filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. For a moment they were at a loss for words. Jean Miaosen sobbed uncontrollably. "Big brother, you must come back safely. Don't push yourself. Your life is what's most important for the Blue Gold Tree clan. Don't worry. I'll be fine. Elders, please take your seats and pray for me in the traditional way of the Blue Gold Tree clan. This battle is our clan's just cause." As he spoke, he threw the second and third elders a meaningful gaze. The 2 elders who had been filled with sorrow since Tang San's unspoken message. Their hearts stirred as they recalled the time Tang San had guided them while meditating before the ancestral tree in Sky Tree City. They quickly nodded and bowed respectfully to him. Only then did Tang San rise into the air, 8 blue spikes extending from his back as he slowly floated upward toward the sky. Jean Miaosen, overwhelmed with emotion, nearly tried to follow Tang San into the sky but was held back by the second elder. The elder whispered something to her, and though Jean Miaosen was momentarily stunned, she quickly calmed down. The 12 Blue Gold Tree clan elders sat down cross-legged where they stood, closing their eyes in unison. The second elder spoke in a low voice, "Let us pray for our clan leader. Justice will prevail." The other 11 elders shouted in unison, "Justice will prevail." As they spoke, a faint blue glow appeared around them, and their life force began to radiate outward. These were 12 god-level members of the Blue Gold Tree clan. Their life energy was so powerful that even the soul capturer nymph emperor felt his entire body invigorated by the life force they emitted. The sensation of renewed vitality was even more pronounced for the adamant nymph powerhouses present. The soul capturer nymph emperor sighed inwardly. It was no wonder everyone wanted a blue gold tree around the house. Their life energy was far too precious, and such wealth inevitably brought disaster. Even he had felt a tinge of greed in that brief moment, and if it hadn't been for the ancestral tree's awakening, he might have considered acting on those impulses. The life energy of king-level Blue Gold Tree clan members would be immensely nourishing for someone like him. He made a mental note to visit Sky Tree City to assess the ancestral tree's awakening firsthand. His gaze flickered as he stood there in deep thought, but by now, Tang San and the adamant nymph emperor had already ascended to a height of 1,000 meters, facing each other in midair. The adamant nymph emperor glared coldly at Tang San. "I'll give you one last chance. Give up now, take your people back to Sky Tree City, and I'll act like nothing happened. Yes, we captured your clan members, but you came to Adamant City and caused chaos, and you even dared to kill my people. We can call it even. Otherwise, I'll kill you today. Even if the other emperors hold me accountable, I won't hold back." Tang San simply smiled. "Are you saying this because you're worried the higher-ranking emperors will be displeased with you? Or are you afraid you can't beat me? You insolent brat, it seems you really do want to die." The adamant nymph emperor was enraged. Its earlier words had indeed been meant to avoid creating tensions with the other emperors, and it was also still wary of the ancestral tree. The blow it had received from the ancestral tree had left a deep impression on it, and significant damage. Even though more than a month had passed, and it had sought help from other emperors, it had still not fully recovered. If the ancestral tree were to fully awaken, it would undoubtedly become the most powerful emperor in the world by a good margin. Although the chances of that happening were low chances didn't mean impossible. If this situation could be resolved without escalating things, the adamant nymph emperor was willing to take some losses. The expenses could always be recouped later. Tang San's body shimmered with blue-golden light. Enough talk. I've already said it. This kind of blood feud can only end with death. If you're capable, then kill me. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Kill me? You and what army? Since you're so eager to die, then come on. You're the junior, so I'll let you make the first move. The last trace of hesitation in the adamant nymph emperor's heart vanished. Only by killing this brat could it quell the hatred festering in its soul. Tang San didn't hold back. After all, he was facing an emperor. His blue-golden light suddenly burst forth, and a vast surge of life energy, immensely pure and potent, exploded outward. The 8 deep blue spikes on his back suddenly turned a brilliant golden color. A colossal figure appeared behind him, the image of the ancestral tree. Seeing the projection of the ancestral tree, the adamant nymph emperor's eyes narrowed for a moment, but then it actually relaxed. While the aura Tang San was emitting was unquestionably powerful, it was still within the confines of the great nymph king level. The difference was immense. Sure, there was only one step between the 11th and the 12th orders, but that step was as high as heaven itself. In the next instant, Tang San moved. A flood of life energy surged forward, accompanied by the rapid expansion of the 8 spikes on his back, which turned into long sharp vines that rushed straight toward the adamant nymph emperor. At that moment, the entire sky turned into a sea of blue and gold. It seemed that Tang San's overflowing life energy was impacting the 12 blue-gold tree clan elders on the ground as well. The life energy radiating from their bodies grew even stronger. The soul capturer nymph emperor glanced at the elders on the ground, then back at Tang San, who was launching his attack in the sky. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Are they? In the face of Tang San's assault, the adamant nymph emperor floated motionless in midair, its disdain evident. In terms of physical defense, it was the absolute best on the entire continent, even superior to the golden mammoth demon emperor. It had a smaller body, which allowed for its energy to be more concentrated, and the golden crystal armor it wore was its life-bound divine artifact, a part of its body that he had been refining since the very day it became a nymph. Not even other emperors were capable of breaking through its defenses on a normal basis, let alone a mere great nymph king. In the face of the 8 spikes Tang San thrust at him, the adamant nymph emperor neither dodged nor tried to block them. The spikes struck it with a series of metallic clangs, but they didn't leave a single mark. It then raised its hands with lightning speed, suddenly grabbing 2 of the spikes. A vicious glint flashed in its eyes. Your beloved ancestral tree injured me, so how about you make up for it? Earth prison. With a low growl, brilliant golden light erupted from its body. Its armor suddenly shattered into streams of golden light, enveloping both it and Tang San. This golden light formed pillar-like structures that connected to form a cage. Then the golden bars turned into crystalline walls, and at the same time, gravity increased by dozens of times in an instant, pressing down on Tang San. Suddenly, his body felt as heavy as a mountain. The adamant nymph emperor's bare body looked like a massively muscular human male, and its skin had a crystalline luster. It was completely unconcerned about injuries. Even without the armor, its defense was still not something a mere great nymph king could break through. Adamant, hold back. The soul capturer nymph emperor leaped from the ground, soaring into the sky in an instant. He knew that this earth prison wasn't meant for Tang San. How could a great nymph king possibly pose a threat? There was no way Tang San could force the adamant nymph emperor to shed its beloved armor. Whether in speed, strength, energy, or divine sense, great nymph kings were like ants to emperors. Thus, it was clear that this earth prison was meant to stop him, preventing his interference. The adamant nymph emperor acted as if he hadn't heard his companion's words. With a powerful tug, he pulled Tang San closer. Golden light radiated from his body, and a fierce suction force began absorbing the pure life energy emanating from Tang San. Visible streams of blue-golden light flowed from the two spikes into the Adamant Nymph Emperor's body, devouring. The Adamant Nymph Emperor was clearly devouring Tang San's life energy. When he realized this, the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor's first thought wasn't to save Tang San, but that he also wanted a slice of the pie. Though Tang San was only a great nymph king, he carried the direct bloodline of the ancestral tree, and he had clearly profited from the ancestral tree's awakening. Absorbing such life energy would greatly increase an emperor's life essence, extending their lifespan and improving their cultivation. How could he not be tempted? Unfortunately, with the Earth Prison in place, even the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor was helpless. His divine sense was indeed far above his companions, but the Earth Prison, though simple in appearance, was actually the Adamant Nymph Emperor's strongest defense. It was capable of isolating everything from the outside world, including divine sense. Unless the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor was willing to use his full force, it was impossible to break through the defense, and even if he did, he had no idea how long it would take to break it. Moreover, as the Adamant Nymph Emperor continued to devour pure life energy, its power would increase. Could the Earth Prison really be broken by that point? Questionable. The difference in strength between the 4th and 6th ranking Nymph Emperors wasn't that significant after all. And even if he cracked open the shell by some miracle, the deed would be already done by then. There was nothing to gain from trying to stop it. Thus, after quickly assessing the situation, the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor realized that his intervention was pointless. Without a doubt, if the Adamant Nymph Emperor killed the Blue Gold Tree Clan's leader, it would be held accountable afterward. But what did that matter? It would have already gained tangible benefits, and even when the Ancestral Court inevitably took it to task, there was little they could actually do to an emperor apart from making them bleed financially. In that moment, the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor even cursed Tang San for his foolishness. The Adamant Nymph Emperor's sinister grin widened as the dense life energy poured into its body, immediately healing the injuries the ancestral tree had inflicted. The sensation was incredibly pleasurable. The life energy from Tang San was far more potent and pure than it had expected. In fact, it had never absorbed anything from any other blue gold tree. Clearly, things had changed substantially after the ancestral tree's awakening, which explained this youngling's audacity in challenging it. Unfortunately for him, he had no idea how vast the difference between a great nymph king and an emperor truly was. While Tang San's life energy tried to push back against it, its body was more than strong enough to absorb it all without issue. This was the perfect supplement, a divine gift. Tang San's expression was rather grim. The other 6 spikes continuously struck the Adamant Nymph Emperor, but they couldn't even scratch its skin. There's no point in struggling, it's all futile. Your life energy is even more abundant than I imagined. You're not just seeking death. You're offering me the perfect supplement. The ancestral tree's strike took nearly a quarter of my life essence, and today, I'll replenish it from you. Quite a fortunate choice you've made. I suppose I should thank you now. At this point, the Adamant Nymph Emperor's anger had completely dissipated. Even the sinister grin on its face was replaced by one of satisfaction. The endless stream of life energy it was absorbing from Tang San nourished his body like nothing ever before. The golden crystalline glow on its skin grew brighter and brighter, and the Earth Prison's light became even more dazzling. It was now downright impossible to see what was happening inside the prison. Tang San couldn't help but sigh. He had clearly given up. His attacks were growing weaker. Meanwhile, the life energy the Adamant Nymph Emperor absorbed from him increased, not only healing its previous injuries, but even giving it the feeling that its own life essence was advancing to a higher level. This was undeniably a delightful experience. The Adamant Nymph Emperor even began to think, if a single great nymph king can provide this much life energy, and since I've already fallen out with the Blue Gold Tree Clan, why not discuss it with Soul Capturer? There are more than a dozen god-level Blue Gold Tree Clan members here, we could share them. Once they're gone we can say whatever we want, the dead couldn't argue. So what if we are punished? It's worth it. As this thought crossed its mind, the Adamant Nymph Emperor felt a rare sense of deep satisfaction. It had known the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor for many years, so he was well aware of his companion's thought process. Seeing the benefits it had gained, he would definitely have his own thoughts about it. The chance of convincing him was very high. Just as the Adamant Nymph Emperor was contemplating how to maximize his gains in the upcoming negotiations with the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor, he suddenly felt a change in his body. The life energy it was absorbing felt overwhelming. How could that be? It was an emperor. How could absorbing the life energy of a great nymph king make it feel bloated? Instinctively, it snapped out of his thoughts and looked over at Tang San. But what it saw wasn't the face of pain and agony it had expected. Instead, its gaze met a pair of eerily calm eyes. That calmness sent a jolt through its heart, and a sudden feeling of dread crept in. With its emperor-level divine consciousness, it should have felt a sense of danger long before something actually went wrong, so why wasn't it feeling anything? Its instincts were triggered by something, but it could not tell what exactly it was. Of course, it had no way of knowing that its opponent had the discerning eye of heaven and the polar luck domain at his disposal, and that its sense of danger was being completely misled. When Tang San sighed earlier, it was indeed because he had given up on thinking that the Adamant Nymph Emperor might not be as cerebrally dense as its name suggested, but as expected of a sentient rock, I suppose. You may be all shiny and whatnot, but I guess it's true when they say the light is on but nobody's home. From the moment Tang San decided he would fight, he had every intention to use the polar luck domain, but he was afraid of the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor noticing something. Thus, when the Earth prison isolated them from the outside world, Tang San had to restrain himself from laughing. He had been more or less certain that his plan would work anyway, but once the Earth prison blocked the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor's perception, he knew that there was practically no chance things could go wrong. And indeed, everything proceeded according to plan. By the time the Adamant Nymph Emperor realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Everything it had wanted to absorb, it had absorbed, along with some things Tang San intended to inject into its body. The Adamant Nymph Emperor felt that the life energy it was absorbing from Tang San was different from the energy it had absorbed from other blue gold trees. This was only natural, it was indeed pure life energy, but it also happened to contain chaos energy. What kind of energy was chaos energy? Even emperors had no idea what it was. The stimulation of this energy naturally made the life energy he absorbed feel smoother, more easy to process, and far more effective. This was all fine, of course. The real problem was that the chaos energy was only there to hide some other things. The Adamant Nymph Emperor's devouring ability was strong, and in terms of divine sense, it wasn't weaker than Tang San. However, without the support of a divine seat, its foundation couldn't compare to that of a true god. Like Tang San, chaos energy was not something that could be absorbed just like that. Even while it was inside the Adamant Nymph Emperor's body, it was still under Tang San's control. Thus, when the time came, Tang San simply withdrew it, and the thing it concealed was thus released. What Tang San had concealed within the chaos energy was, of course, the power of the Chaos Blue Silver Emperor. The true name of the Chaos Blue Silver Emperor, if one was to be technical, was the Chaos Yin-Yang Blue Silver Emperor. As chaos energy was born from the extremes of yin and yang, it was also superior to them, so it could restrain them. But once freed from the chaos energy's restraints, this terrifying power could not be contained by any inferior energy. The yin and yang energies thus began to erupt, clashing and merging with each other simultaneously, and absorbing the surrounding life energy in the process. After all, life energy could serve not only as nourishment for all life forms, but also as fuel for various processes. The bloated sensation the Adamant Nymph Emperor felt was a result of this. It had to be said, its physique was indeed exceptionally powerful. The sudden surge in internal energy only made it feel bloated. Had it been someone with a weaker cultivation instead, they would have been directly blown apart. Even so, the yin-yang energy within its body surged and multiplied exponentially. All the life energy it had absorbed earlier became the initial fuel for this yin-yang energy to bloom, and the second source of fuel was none other than the Adamant Nymph Emperor's own life energy. The reaction between these energies was so powerful and fast that before it could even process what exactly was wrong, things had already gone far beyond its control. As the energy multiplied, the Adamant Nymph Emperor's expression turned to one of shock. Even now, it had no idea what was happening inside its body. These changes were utterly unbelievable to it. It simply couldn't fathom how a great nymph king could inject any energy into his body that he couldn't absorb. Moreover, it was a mineral-type nymph, literally made of stone. The inside of its body was every bit as tough as the outside. So why was this energy erupting within it with such ferocity? And why was it so damn painful? It suddenly tried to release the 2 spikes it had been holding, but now that it wanted to let go, Tang San wouldn't allow it. The 2 spikes were as tough as metal spears, yet they softened instantly, curling around his wrists. After all, they were nothing but the vines of the blue-silver emperor. At the same time, life energy several times greater than before began to flood into its body wildly. The sheer immensity of Tang San's life energy was far beyond what the adamant nymph emperor could comprehend. The colossal image of the ancestral tree reappeared behind Tang San, becoming clearer with every moment that passed. Simultaneously, brilliant blue-golden light began to bloom in the distance. That light was coming from the direction of Skytree City. The distance between Skytree City and Adamant City was considerable, and if Tang San relied solely on his divine consciousness, he wouldn't have been able to maintain the connection. But with a little help from the space-time lighthouse, things were quite different. Moreover, Tang San wasn't the only one here with the imprint of the ancestral tree's blessing. There were also 12 elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan, among whom 2 great nymph kings and a direct descendant of the ancestral tree's bloodline. While they meditated below, they activated the imprint with all the energy they could muster, playing the role of a beacon. When Tang San unleashed the full brilliance of the ancestral tree's radiance, it triggered a reaction from ancestral tree's husk that waited far away in Skytree City. Vast amounts of life energy began to converge from all directions toward Adamant City, surging madly into the sky. As the representative of the ancestral tree, Tang San was the most capable of channeling this life energy. And right now, he was channeling all of it, without reservation, into the adamant nymph emperor's body. With Tang San's current cultivation, if he used his full divine consciousness, both of his transcendent bloodlines, the sea god's divine power, and the sea god's trident, he would have the ability to barely contend with an emperor. But killing one, especially one known for their defense like the adamant nymph emperor, was impossible unless he was willing to make some rather painful sacrifices. But strength isn't everything. Timing, terrain, and the matching of abilities are all critical factors in a battle. When the adamant nymph emperor tried to enter Skytree City and was sent flying by the ancestral tree strike, Tang San sensed an opportunity. He had been the one to push the ancestral tree to strike, so he knew perfectly well what the ancestral tree had done. The ancestral tree's strike had forcibly stripped away a large portion of the adamant nymph emperor's life essence. With its defense, normal attacks could not harm it, but depriving it of its life essence was different. It was a real and direct impact, one that shortened its lifespan massively. That was why the adamant nymph emperor had fled in fear. The ancestral tree was the origin of all life energy on Phelan Planet. Naturally, since it was able to bestow life energy, it was also able to strip that life energy away. After its awakening, these 2 abilities were granted to Tang San, and through him, to the clan elders. Thou givest and thou takest away. With these 2 abilities at his disposal, Tang San had a bold idea. The adamant nymph emperor's life essence had been drained, and there was no time when it would be more desperate to absorb life energy to replenish itself than now. Moreover, its confidence in its impregnable defense would make it disregard everything else when presented with a nice and juicy source of life energy. Even now, the adamant nymph emperor didn't realize that the reason it had been able to devour so much life energy so smoothly was not that it was far stronger, but that Tang San was letting it absorb the energy. In fact, let alone not resisting, Tang San had even used the life-bestowing ability to facilitate it. Now, as the yin-yang energy had taken root and begun to grow within the adamant nymph emperor, Tang San fully activated the life-bestowing ability. Using himself and the 12 elders as conduits, he fully activated the power of the ancestral tree's husk in order to absorb all the life energy between the 2 cities and inject it into the adamant nymph emperor. Adding fuel to a fire makes it burn hotter. So what happens when you add an entire lake's worth of fuel to a wildfire? All of this had been carefully calculated by Tang San, planned from the very beginning. The reason he had spent so much time meditating after arriving in Adamant City was that his divine consciousness had been using the space-time lighthouse to communicate with the ancestral tree. Even at this distance, it allowed him to draw on the ancestral tree's power. The yin-yang energy surged madly under the massive influx of life energy, causing the adamant nymph emperor's body to swell uncontrollably. The chaotic yin-yang energy clashed wildly within it, forcing it to use all its power to suppress it. But life energy continued pouring in, and the yin-yang energy kept growing stronger. It was as if it had swallowed a ball of fire, and now it was being forcefully fed oil by the barrel. Worst of all, there was no way to release the energy. Extreme yin and extreme yang, when left uncontrolled, were some of the most terrifying forces in the world. The golden radiance of the adamant nymph emperor now flickered wildly, growing dim and bright at irregular intervals. At the same time, its body was expanding more and more. Tang San smiled as he watched the adamant nymph emperor, who could no longer even speak and had to focus all its divine consciousness just to suppress the raging yin-yang energy within it. Heaven may forgive those punished by fate, but those who bring disaster upon themselves cannot escape it. You enjoy devouring the life energy of my blue gold tree clan, don't you? Well, today, I'll let you devour your fill. The adamant nymph emperor glared at Tang San in fury. At this moment, it could think of nothing else. It just wanted to expel the wildly erupting yin-yang energy that its body could no longer contain. But how could it possibly control the yin-yang energy? In its frenzied state, even Tang San couldn't control it anymore. If you're willing to surrender, I might spare you. At the very least, I could ease your situation, Tang San said suddenly. The adamant nymph emperor, unable to care about anything else, blinked repeatedly at Tang San in desperation. As an emperor, it had never imagined it would find itself in such a humiliating situation, but it had to live. Anything else was secondary. Tang San cut off the flow of life energy. It would take a while for the yin-yang energy to convert all the stored energy into fuel, so for the time being, there was no need for him to add more of it. In a flash, Tang San appeared before the adamant nymph emperor, pressing both hands against its chest. Don't resist. I'll draw the power back, he said solemnly. The adamant nymph emperor had no idea whether Tang San was telling the truth, but at this moment, it had no choice but to believe him. The yin-yang energy inside him was too intense, and it was eating its body from the inside as if it had swallowed magma. Even now, it couldn't understand how Tang San had done something like that. The next moment, Tang San's hands emanated a powerful suction force. The adamant nymph emperor didn't resist, fearing the energy inside it might explode. Indeed, the energy within it was slowly absorbed by Tang San. Its stiff and swollen body relaxed slightly, and it felt a hint of relief. Right now, Tang San didn't look as detestable to it as before. However, this sense of relief lasted only for a moment before it realized something was wrong. Tang San was indeed absorbing some of the energy inside it, but it wasn't the wildly erupting yin-yang energy. It was the emperor's own bloodline power, the bloodline of the adamant nymph clan, the bloodline power of an emperor. That was Tang San's true goal. The death of the adamant nymph emperor was not terribly relevant in the long term. Even if an emperor died, another would eventually rise, so it wouldn't significantly impact the strength of demons and nymphs. But absorbing the bloodline power of an emperor was an entirely different story. It would bring immense benefits to Tang San. Even if he could use it for nothing else, it would help him create yet another transcendent bloodline. With his current strength and life energy, and increased approval from the plane, he could easily handle one more. The adamant nymph bloodline wasn't considered top tier, certainly not on the level of the immortal flame phoenix bloodline, but in terms of defense, it was absolutely unmatched. Otherwise, the adamant nymph emperor wouldn't have recklessly devoured Tang San's life energy. It had only done so based on sheer self-confidence. The bloodline power of an emperor was indeed extraordinary. As soon as Tang San began absorbing it, he could feel its distinct layers and understand more about why emperors were so different. They were indeed far beyond ordinary life forms, and their bloodline power was immensely potent. After expending so much life energy earlier, Tang San had been somewhat weakened, relying on the ancestral tree's energy to sustain himself. But now, as he absorbed the adamant nymph emperor's bloodline essence, his energy was immediately and perfectly restored. The adamant nymph emperor's eyes widened as it felt its bloodline power being absorbed, while the yin-yang energy inside him continued to expand. The more power he lost, the harder it became to endure. But now there was no way for it to reverse the situation. It didn't even dare to do anything with its divine consciousness, because even the most minute mistake could lead to its body exploding. Tang San continued to absorb without hesitation. He didn't want the Adamant Nymph Emperor to die too quickly. He needed more time to absorb as much bloodline power as he could. Slowly, despair filled the Adamant Nymph Emperor's eyes. It now understood that Tang San had no intention of letting it go. If this continued, there would be only one outcome for it. "Damn you! I'll take you down with me!" the Adamant Nymph Emperor roared, finally abandoning control of its divine consciousness in a furious outburst. But just then, a stream of pure energy emanated from Tang San's palm, and the yin-yang energy that had nearly torn the Adamant Nymph Emperor's body apart suddenly calmed down. Stunned, it realized that its body was no longer on the verge of explosion. With such a tremendous amount of energy raging within, it was certain it would have taken Tang San down with it. But even if it wanted to die, was it really up to it? "You're overthinking things," Tang San replied with a calm smile. As a former god king, if Tang San didn't have the confidence to prevent his opponent from dragging him down in a mutual demise, he wouldn't be doing what he was doing now. The Adamant Nymph Emperor couldn't control the yin-yang energy, but Tang San's Chaos Blue-Silver Emperor could, albeit temporarily. By injecting a little chaos energy, he could suppress the explosion of yin-yang energy for a little, keeping the Adamant Nymph Emperor alive. How could he let it die before fully absorbing its bloodline power? However, the Adamant Nymph Emperor's furious roar startled the powerful beings outside. When the ancestral tree's aura erupted in Sky Tree City, the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor immediately sensed it. He was renowned for his divine consciousness, so he was the first to feel the burst of aura and the surge of life energy flowing toward Adamant City. The ancestral tree, is Jean Miaolin able to harness the power of the ancestral tree all the way from here? That was his first thought. Then, he noticed some change in the aura within the Earth Prison. Unfortunately, he couldn't see or sense what was happening inside, but he guessed that Jean Miaolin had managed to mount some resistance. The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor wasn't sure what was happening inside. Still, upon sensing that Tang San could tap into the ancestral tree's power, he actually felt a bit more at ease. He didn't believe Tang San would win, but he certainly didn't want the Adamant Nymph Emperor to gain too much from him. The power erupting within the Earth Prison grew stronger, and the energy inside was clearly shifting. The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor tried to sense it, but all he could feel was a massive amount of life energy gathering inside. It was so abundant that even from where he stood, he felt its nourishing effects. While unsure when the battle would end, the Adamant Nymph Emperor's furious roar suddenly made the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor's eyes narrow in alarm.
Mutuelle destruction?
What the hell? No way. Did Adamant lose? How is that possible? The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor was far sharper than the Adamant Nymph Emperor. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, he immediately darted backward, retreating toward the ground. If his fellow emperor was serious about self-destruction, that would result in an absolutely tremendous explosion, and though he was an emperor himself, he wanted to be nowhere near that. However, when the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor landed back on the ground, he noticed that the Earth Prison in the sky had once again become calm. The energy fluctuations inside were still growing stronger, but there was no sign of an imminent explosion. This was the second reason Tang San had to be grateful for the Adamant Nymph Emperor's Earth Prison. Without its cover, the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor could have sensed something amiss and interrupted Tang San's devouring. At that point, Tang San would have been forced to trigger the yin-yang energy explosion in the Adamant Nymph Emperor's body, and in what state he himself would have been after that was anybody's guess. But now, with the Earth Prison concealing him from prying eyes, Tang San had all the time he needed. The Adamant Nymph Emperor wasn't defeated by Tang San. It was its own greed that had defeated it. Recklessly absorbing things that had no business being inside its body, combined with the insane influx of life energy from the ancestral tree's power that Tang San had drawn in, resulted in an irreversible state. The Adamant Nymph Emperor could feel its bloodline aura weakening, and the golden light radiating from its body was fading. If not for Tang San keeping the yin-yang energy under control with his chaos energy, it would have already self-destructed. Within a few more moments, Tang San was done devouring its bloodline power. It would take time and effort to properly process the bloodline of an emperor, but Tang San had nothing against it. The benefits were simply enormous. Calmly, Tang San removed the massive diamond ring from the adamant nymph emperor's finger, patted it on the shoulder and said, "Greed is the original sin. That's my advice to you. If there's a next life, remember to avoid it." In the next instant, light flickered in Tang San's eyes, and the earth prison surrounding them retracted. This was a result of the adamant nymph emperor's bloodline power. Having absorbed it in its entirety, Tang San could now perfectly mimic the adamant nymph emperor's aura and easily control the earth prison that was created from its golden crystal armor. The golden light retracted, but it did not return to the adamant nymph emperor. Instead, it was absorbed by the diamond ring on Tang San's finger. He then placed the ring into his own storage ring, while radiating a golden light of his own that allowed him to perfectly conceal what he was doing. In the next moment, Tang San gave the adamant nymph emperor a powerful shove, sending it flying skyward. As he did so, Tang San also withdrew his chaos energy. The shiny golden sphere that was the overly bloated adamant nymph emperor reached 3,000 meters in altitude within just seconds, and by that time, it had already erupted with uncontrollable yin-yang energy. "No!" it screamed frantically, but before it could do anything, it exploded. A deafening explosion echoed across the heavens. Tang San descended like a meteor, instantly suppressing his own aura, while simultaneously drawing on the ancestral tree imprints of the 12 blue-gold tree clan elders below. A massive silhouette of the ancestral tree rose from the ground, enveloping Tang San within it. This sky-shattering explosion had truly shattered the sky in a sense. A gaping black hole was torn open in the very fabric of space, ravenously devouring everything in the air. At the same time, the entire sky darkened in an instant. Over Adamant City, the azure turned a deep crimson, and suddenly, a torrent of blood rain and foul winds began to pour down. An emperor had fallen, and heaven was weeping. The death of the adamant nymph emperor was vastly different from that of the crystal demon emperor. The crystal demon emperor had died of old age, meeting the end of her life completely at peace. Of course, she was at peace because she had already been reincarnated with the help of Tang San. But on this day, the adamant nymph emperor had died a violent death. It had been slain. It had been countless years since an emperor on the demon continent had been killed. And to make it more shocking, the one who had killed it wasn't even an emperor. Adamant City froze at that moment. The sky dimmed, and the sun and moon lost their light. The powerful warriors of the adamant nymph clan stood frozen, trembling. Even the soul capturer nymph emperor stood in shock, staring at the blood rain in the sky and the towering silhouette of the ancestral tree before him, his heart quaking in fear. He died. He really died. That terrifying explosion even tore the sky apart. And that ancient power. The ancestral tree has truly awakened. There's no question about it anymore. It's not just partially awakened, and even if it is, it's definitely going to fully awaken. Whether it was the soul capturer nymph emperor or any other nymph present, none of them could believe that Tang San had been able to kill the adamant nymph emperor. He was only a great nymph king. How could he possibly have slain an emperor? But the adamant nymph emperor was undeniably dead, and with the manifestation of the ancestral tree present, there was no doubt. This was the ancestral tree's doing. Only the ancestral tree could show such power. In an instant, Adamant City fell into an indescribable stillness. Under the torrential blood rain, the entire city was plunged into a deathly silence. The 12 blue gold tree elders were also enveloped by the massive ancestral tree's silhouette. At this moment, even the soul capturer nymph emperor didn't dare approach to investigate. If the ancestral tree could kill one emperor, what was stopping it from killing another? Nevertheless, he couldn't just stand there and stare. Gazing at the enormous silhouette of the ancestral tree before him, he hurriedly bowed and respectfully said, "Junior Soul Capturer greets the ancestral tree." The ancestral tree's silhouette was absorbing the vast amounts of life energy around it, and at this moment, even the soul capturer nymph emperor could feel the life energy within him beginning to fade. It seemed as though this devouring force covered the entire city, and all its life energy was draining away. This sudden change left the soul capturer nymph emperor deeply shocked. He was able to hold his own, using his powerful divine consciousness to control the loss of life force. But the nymph kings and great nymph kings of the adamant nymph clan were clearly struggling to do the same, and even more terrifying was that this devouring force was targeting the entire adamant city. Ancestral tree, I beg you to calm your anger. There are millions of living beings in Adamant City, and they have not harmed the Blue Gold Tree clan. I ask that you spare them. At this moment Jin Chenggu was completely stunned. He couldn't fathom that the adamant nymph emperor had fallen. It had actually fallen. If it had known that this would be the outcome, when Tang San and his people first arrived, it would have welcomed them with the utmost hospitality, handing over the captured Blue Gold Tree clan members without hesitation. The fall of an emperor was an absolute catastrophe for their clan, as the Blue Gold Trees and the Peacock Demons had found out for themselves. And now the Adamant Nymph clan was about to face the same disaster. This war shall not cease until one side is destroyed. When Tang San warned Jin Chenggu that the Blue Gold Tree clan would pursue the Adamant Nymph clan to the death, and advised the citizens of Adamant City to leave within 12 hours, it and the other Adamant Nymph powerhouses had taken it as a joke. But now the reality was laid bare, the joke was on them. The scene before them was utterly terrifying, almost beyond belief. The ancestral tree had descended, killed the Adamant Nymph Emperor, and was now devouring the life energy of an entire main city. The second and third elders went up to meet with Tang San, who was protected within the light of the ancestral tree. As he descended from the sky, the second elder caught him, and he saw that all the elders down below were now shedding tears of joy. As they witnessed the fall of the Adamant Nymph Emperor, they could scarcely believe their eyes. They had sensed the aura of the ancestral tree, and they had naturally understood that its power was about to be felt. But to actually kill an emperor seemed too unbelievable. Now they realized that their clan leader had not been reckless in the slightest. This had all been part of the ancestral tree's plan. Indeed, even the Blue Gold Trees themselves believed that it was the ancestral tree's divine intervention that had led to the demise of the Adamant Nymph Emperor. At this moment their hearts swelled with pride. They understood that from now on, the Blue Gold Tree clan would rise, and no one would ever dare to oppress them again. That an emperor slain. Such an event hadn't occurred for millennia, and now in front of their very eyes an emperor had fallen just like that. What an immense price it had paid for its greed. Adamant City was finished, and so was the Adamant Nymph clan. The vengeance of their people had been fulfilled. Jean Miaosan's blue face had turned nearly purple with excitement. She repeatedly clenched her fists, and the 6 spikes on her back trembled with exhilaration. They could all sense it. Tang San was still alive, and his vital signs were completely normal. The Adamant Nymph Emperor had fallen, and their clan leader was still standing. What could excite them more? They had heard the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor's voice, but at this moment, none of them would respond until Tang San awoke. The one to convey the will of the ancestral tree would be him and nobody else. Vast streams of life energy from all directions were being absorbed into the silhouette of the ancestral tree. Some of it flowed into the elders' bodies, but much more was dispersed into the air, repairing the rift torn open in the sky and spreading throughout the atmosphere. The Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor repeated his plea once again, but still received no response. He thus found himself in the awkward position of being unable to leave, but also unable to do anything if he stayed. If the ancestral tree had truly awakened, even the ancestral court wouldn't have the authority to order it around. After all, the ancestral tree was one of the progenitors of all nymphs, a being that commanded the life force of the plane itself. It stood far above the emperors. But could he really just do nothing and allow the ancestral tree to devour the life energy of an entire main city? Although some of the citizens had fled Adamant City, the majority remained. If their life force was completely drained, the city would become a dead zone. Such a massacre was unprecedented in the history of the demon continent. It was easy to imagine that under these circumstances, the ancestral court would descend into chaos. The fall of the Crystal Demon Emperor had finally given the Solstice Empire a chance to gain the upper hand, but now with the sudden death of an emperor, there was no doubt that demons would seize the initiative once again. The shifts in power dynamics would be incredibly complex, and the redistribution of power even more so. He desperately wanted to return to the ancestral court immediately, to gather the other emperors and address this crisis. But the light of the ancestral tree still shone, and the devouring continued. As the ancestral court's appointed representative, he couldn't simply leave. There were at least 10 million lives in this city. Could he really just abandon them? He didn't dare. At that moment, a slightly weakened voice echoed from within the silhouette of the ancestral tree. Hear the ancestral tree's decree. Hearing this, the soul capturer nymph emperor hurriedly bowed again, this time bending at a full 90 degrees. He feared that the ancestral tree might direct its wrath toward him as well, and he very much enjoyed being alive. The adamant nymph clan's remaining powerhouses were even worse off. Their emperor had fallen, and their greatest support was gone. How could they dare to hold on to any false hopes now? The weakened voice, of course, belonged to Tang San. He continued, hear ye, the adamant nymph clan's sin of slaying our kindred is heinous beyond forgiveness. In our role as the avatar of the plane's life force, we have slain their emperor as punishment to them and a warning to others. But gaining life and spirit as a stone is difficult, and our heart does not bear to kill indiscriminately. We have thus chosen to strip Adamant City of 1/3 of its life energy. Should the adamant nymphs offend again, the entire clan shall be annihilated. Should there be any further transgressions against our kindred, their life essence shall be stripped from the root, and they shall never appear again in this world. Thus we decree. As the final word was spoken, the massive silhouette of the ancestral tree gradually faded away, and the distant aura withdrew and disappeared. Surrounded by the 12 blue-gold tree clan elders, Tang San sat cross-legged on the ground, his face pale. The soul capturer nymph emperor let out a deep sigh of relief. In the end, the ancestral tree hadn't wiped out the city. Things were not as dire as they could have been. Losing 30% of the city's life energy meant that the weaker beings would suffer the most, while the stronger ones would be able to conserve some of their energy, losing only a little. It was unfair, but he would certainly not be the one to protest on grounds of unfairness. At this moment, the soul capturer nymph emperor, the clan leader of the soul capturer tree clan and the 4th-ranked emperor of the Solstice Empire, had lost all desire for the blue gold tree clan. The ancestral tree was far too terrifying. After millennia of slumber, it was now showing power beyond imagination. I will obey the decree, the soul capturer nymph emperor said respectfully, bowing toward Tang San. Tang San slowly opened his eyes and gave a slight nod to the soul capturer nymph emperor but said nothing more. Clearly he was deeply weakened. The soul capturer nymph emperor sighed and said, Clan leader Jean, I must return to the ancestral court immediately to report this situation. The adamant nymph clan is clearly at fault, and I will ensure that the ancestral court hears the full truth behind the matter. My soul capturer tree clan only exists today because of the ancestral tree's legacy, so rest assured. When you come to the ancestral court to report for duty, you will have my full support. Tang San nodded again. Without even glancing at the adamant nymph clan's remaining powerhouses, the soul capturer nymph emperor leaped into the air, transforming into a streak of black light and vanishing over the horizon. Tang San closed his eyes again and resumed his meditation where he sat. He had orchestrated the death of an emperor, weakened the overall strength of the demon continent, and created more space for both himself and Mei Gongzi to rise as emperors in the future. The benefits of killing the adamant nymph emperor were numerous. The blue gold tree clan was now completely loyal to him, Adamant City would never recover, and the name of the ancestral tree would intimidate the ancestral court, paving the way for his official duties. More importantly, he had opened up some space among the plane's peak-level beings, an essential for him to become an emperor. After all, when Tang San ascended, he would undoubtedly require at least as much room as the late Crystal Demon Emperor. The more space there was, the fewer obstacles the planar ruler could place in his way. The fall of the Crystal Demon Emperor gave the Solstice Empire hope that they could gain control, as the Sunborn Nymph Emperor and the Earthshade Nymph Emperor were both exceptionally powerful. However, with one Nymph Emperor down as well, the balance between the two sides shifted once more, further complicating the continent's already turbulent situation. This complexity and chaotic environment would allow humanity to find better opportunities for survival. These were all factors Tang San needed to consider. As the saying goes, pull one hair and the whole body moves, and Tang San had just chopped off a whole finger. He had stirred the waters enough, at least for now, everything was progressing in the direction he had hoped. There was no rush to undergo his evaluation at the ancestral court. As long as it was completed before Mei Gongzi's martial tournament, it would be fine. The next step was to fully absorb the bloodline power of the Adamant Nymph Emperor, ensuring his survival capabilities were further strengthened. As for the ancestral tree, it only acted on instinct, and its most basic instinct was to seek benefits and avoid harm. The destruction of the Adamant Nymph Emperor was something the ancestral tree would not oppose, especially since the Adamant Nymph clan had always oppressed the Blue Gold Tree clan. Moreover, devouring 30% of the life energy of an entire city was obviously not something Tang San could do. He was merely a conduit through which the ancestral tree exerted its power. Dissipating such a massive amount of life energy into the air was a gift to the entire plane. For the ancestral tree, it was undoubtedly beneficial. As long as Tang San kept acting in its interest, he would enjoy its full support. As he meditated, the bloodline power he had absorbed started to surge out of control. He had taken in every last trace of an emperor's bloodline power. How immense was that power? Tang San had chosen the Adamant Nymph Emperor as his target after careful consideration. After all, not a single one of the major clans had refrained from capturing members of the Blue Gold Tree clan. Tang San was absolutely certain of this. So far, no one had returned any of them to Skytree City, so it was not like he was lacking people to take revenge against. There were several reasons for choosing this emperor and not another. One of Tang San's main goals was to use the Adamant Nymph bloodline power to enhance his own defenses. And there was another critical factor. The prerequisite for all this charade was that he had to be able to absorb the emperor's bloodline power, and the Adamant Nymph Emperor was practically the perfect target. The indestructible Adamant Nymph Emperor was by far not the strongest among the Nymph Emperors, in spite of its unrivaled defense, and its cultivation was relatively lower. At the same time, his essence was of the earth attribute, the most stable of all elements. If it had been fire attribute, Tang San's body would not have been able to bear such a bloodline power. Additionally, the vast life energy given to him by the ancestral tree nourished his body to the core. The month Tang San spent cultivating in Skytree City had been immensely significant, repairing the flaws in his body and healing the injuries from his tribulation. At the same time, it allowed him to accumulate an enormous amount of life force, expanding his longevity and resilience by countless times. Even so, controlling and stabilizing the bloodline power of an emperor was still incredibly taxing for him. He had to rely on the golden fiend energy he had gained from Mei Gongzi's tribulation, combined with the annihilation energy from his own 9 heavens 10 earths divine extinguishing tribulation, and even then, he barely managed to seal this power. His pale complexion was indeed real, but his exhaustion was not due to the fight. Rather, it was because sealing and bearing this emperor's bloodline imprint was ridiculously strenuous. As Tang San now found out firsthand, an emperor was indeed a being of a different level. He could have easily given up part of the bloodline power, making it much easier to bear. However, he had decided to take the risk in order to obtain the entirety of it. With this intact essence, he could ensure that when he became an emperor in the future, he could immediately get a 12th order transcendent bloodline, securing his place among the top emperors. So no matter how taxing it was, as long as his body didn't collapse, he would persevere and seal this hard-earned, immense power within himself, to be absorbed gradually in the future. But even with his powerful divine consciousness, the assistance from his divine seat, the many bloodline powers within his body, the protection of his chaos energy, and the support of his fortune from the polar luck domain, it took him an entire day to gradually suppress the aura of the Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline within his body. It was truly a thrilling ordeal. However, at this moment, Tang San also discovered an even greater ability of the polar luck domain than before. As an emperor, the indestructible Adamant Nymph Emperor's death undoubtedly resulted in immense misfortune. So immense, in fact, that the eruption of this misfortune was bound to trigger a change in the fortune of the entire plane. But at the same time, the more misfortune there was, the greater the corresponding fortune. If the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor had been present, Tang San wouldn't have had any chance at all. The Celestial Fox Demon Emperor would have undoubtedly seized this fortune for himself and the entire Celestial Fox clan without hesitation. But now, the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor was far away in the ancestral court. Although he was undoubtedly able to sense it and would inevitably take action, Tang San was right here, and he could do what he had to do before the celestial fox demon emperor could even react. The first thing he did was, of course, to unceremoniously draw this fortune to himself through the polar luck domain. After suppressing the adamant nymph emperor's bloodline, his discerning eye of heaven finally advanced to the 11th order. This breakthrough also led to a full-scale evolution of the polar luck domain, and with the boost in fortune, the adamant nymph emperor's bloodline imprint was sealed even more securely. The bloody rainstorm over Adamant City disappeared in the meantime. Once it was gone, the skies cleared, but the citizens of Adamant City saw none of that. Their hearts were shrouded in a thick cloud of gloom. Adamant City's guardian, a powerhouse of his generation, had fallen just like that. It was as if the city's very foundation had been shattered. All mineral-type nymphs in Adamant City had become like rootless duckweed, no longer protected by a powerful emperor. And the one responsible for all of this was none other than the ancestral tree, one of the 3 ancestors. This terrifying being had even stripped away 30% of the city's life energy, scattering it into the heavens and earth. There was no doubt, the decline of Adamant City was irreversible, at least for a long time until another emperor emerged. Mineral-type nymphs would be so oppressed that they couldn't raise their heads. This made it even harder for them to bear, as they were already at a disadvantage in the Solstice Empire compared to plant-type nymphs. As for the instigators, the 13 powerhouses of the Blue Gold Tree clan remained in the center of Adamant City, showing no signs of leaving. No matter how much resentment burned in the hearts of Adamant City's higher-ups, led by Jin Chenggu, they were utterly helpless. With a third of their life energy stripped away, they didn't dare entertain even the slightest thought of struggling. If even the indestructible adamant nymph emperor had fallen, what power did they have to resist? A faint smile appeared on Tang San's face as his pale complexion gradually returned to normal. The other elders did not enter meditation. Instead, they stood guard around him, fearing that he might suffer harm. Now that they had witnessed Tang San personally slay the not-so-indestructible adamant nymph emperor, in their hearts, he had already become an uncrowned emperor. They were fully certain that the Blue Gold Tree clan was finally going to rise, under the leadership of this new clan leader, basking in the glory of the ancestral tree. The Blue Gold Tree clan had risen, and from now on, no one would dare to poach their clan members. As reality proved, not even emperors could protect the poachers. The death of an emperor was undoubtedly the best way to establish dominance. They were absolutely certain that it wouldn't be long before all the scattered members of the Blue Gold Tree clan would be returned. Any main city that dared to continue imprisoning blue gold trees would have to prepare to face the ancestral tree's wrath, and since even the adamant nymph emperor was unable to protect itself in front of the tree's power, then others were likely even less capable. When Tang San decided to challenge the adamant nymph emperor, they found it unbelievable, unquestionably heroic and undoubtedly foolish. But once he succeeded, the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan realized that everything had changed, as if the sun had risen from the west. From this moment onward, the future of the Blue Gold Tree clan was bright. Sensing that Tang San had opened his eyes, the 12 elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan immediately turned their gazes toward him. Jean Miaosen moved closer and asked softly, "Big brother, are you hurt?" At that moment her heart was full of pride. To have such an older brother, she was utterly filled with excitement. Tang San smiled and shook his head, saying, "I'm fine, everything is stable now. Let's return to Skytree City first." All right. Jean Miaosen nodded repeatedly. Tang San raised his head to glance at the sky. He roughly gauged how long he had been meditating through the space-time lighthouse. By now, the upper echelons of the Solstice Empire, and likely even the ancestral court, were likely in utter chaos over the death of the adamant nymph emperor. In under a year, this was already the second emperor to fall. Although the loss in the Solstice Empire couldn't compare to the Empyrean Dominion's loss of the Crystal Demon Emperor, the death of an emperor was still a significant blow. But so what? He stood on the side of justice. Moreover, even in the view of the soul-capturing nymph emperor, it wasn't really Tang San who had killed the indestructible adamant nymph emperor. It was the ancestral tree. He needed to head back for now. Although he had somehow managed to seal the new bloodline imprint, it was still not entirely stable. He couldn't engage in combat for now. If his strength faltered, the terrifying energy of the bloodline imprint could easily break through the seal. He had to go into secluded cultivation for a while, absorbing part of the energy into his existing bloodline imprints to reduce the sealed amount. That way it would be much easier for him to preserve it long-term. 13 figures soared into the sky. Without saying a word to the powerhouses of the Adamant Nymph clan, Tang San led the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan away from Adamant City. What happened to Adamant City next was no longer Tang San's concern. Though the Adamant Nymph clan had lost the Adamant Nymph Emperor, they were still quite strong. They had at least 2 great nymph kings, after all. Moreover, with things as they were, the ancestral court likely wouldn't have the resources to immediately replace the ruling clan of a main city. They could manage for a while, and what happened after that was their own problem. Looking down at Adamant City from the sky, it appeared as if everything had returned to normal. However, the city no longer exuded the same imposing presence as when they first arrived, nor was there the uproar one would have expected after such events. Instead, there was a vague air of decline, something Tang San could easily discern through his observation of the city's fortune. In contrast, the 12 Blue Gold Tree clan elders surrounding Tang San all radiated a sense of pride and vigor. Now that they had left Adamant City, the excitement they had been holding back finally burst forth. Even now they still found it hard to believe, but with everything laid out before them, they had no choice but to accept the reality. Unlike the departure flight, their return to Skytree City was in a straight line, and as they passed, vast amounts of life energy surged from the ground. Tang San's life force had clearly advanced again. Even though he hadn't fully absorbed the Adamant Nymph Emperor's power, he had gained another bloodline imprint. His life force had been further elevated during the battle, as his power merged more deeply with the ancestral tree's energy. Additionally, more chaos energy had been generated during the explosion of yin-yang energy within the Adamant Nymph Emperor, nourishing him further. As a result, he had undergone yet another transformation. Of course, hunting the Adamant Nymph Emperor was a one-time opportunity, never to be repeated. Before truly becoming an emperor himself, Tang San wouldn't dare to hunt another emperor, or he would undoubtedly face the harshest retaliation from the ancestral court. The return journey was much faster than their arrival. In less than a third of the time, Tang San led the group back to Skytree City, where the ancestral tree resided. It had been more than 10 hours since the fall of the Adamant Nymph Emperor, and on the surface Skytree City appeared unchanged. However, when the Adamant Nymph Emperor was killed, the ancestral tree had manifested within the city, and everyone, whether from the Blue Gold Tree clan or other races living there, had witnessed it. Then came the terrifying vision of blood flowing across the sky. At that time, no one dared to imagine that an emperor had fallen, but the celestial phenomena were too intense to ignore. How could the Blue Gold Tree clan not be curious about the true situation? The death of an emperor was something that couldn't be hidden. Although the information wasn't fully confirmed, the Grand Elder was also connected to the ancestral tree and could sense some things. Naturally, the old tree was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, unable to contain his worry. Even though he'd felt it rather clearly, he still found it hard to believe that the Adamant Nymph Emperor had truly died. The ancestral tree's light had burst forth and displayed an immense amount of energy right before him. Yet this event was so shocking that he still couldn't fully accept it. After all, he knew that no emperor had been slain on the demon continent since times immemorial. What concerned him even more was the safety of Jean Mirolin and the other elders. He had no way of knowing what the new clan leader had been planning, but with such a major upheaval and such a significant reaction from the ancestral tree, there was no way this had nothing to do with him. There was absolutely no way. The Grand Elder had finally seen hope for the rise of the Blue Gold Tree clan in this new clan leader. He even hoped that Jean Mirolin could one day become an emperor, allowing the Blue Gold Tree clan to stop being so passive under the ancestral tree's awakening. If this clan leader were to fall now, it would be a disaster. What's more, Jean Mirolin had taken Jean Miaosen, the only other direct descendant of the ancestral tree, with him. If anything happened to both of them, it would truly be the end of the Blue Gold Tree clan. While waiting anxiously, the Grand Elder had sent people to gather information. Unfortunately, all they could gather in such a short time was from the limited number of people who'd fled Adamant City long before anything major happened, and so he had no idea of what was true and what wasn't. All he could do was wait. Just then he sensed a familiar aura. When he saw the dozen figures in the sky and felt the rich life energy they radiated, the Grand Elder was so moved that he nearly burst into tears. He immediately spotted Jin Miaolin's figure. Seeing him alive, the Grand Elder subconsciously clenched his fists. The clan leader wasn't dead, and that was all that mattered. His return was more important than anything. Then he noticed Jin Miaosan, and he let out a sigh of relief. As for the other elders, they might as well have been trees on the roadside. He couldn't be bothered to think about them. Tang San led the elders as they descended from the sky, landing directly in front of the ancestral tree's husk in the inner city. This was his city. There was no need to land before the city gates and walk there. "Clan leader!" the Grand Elder shouted excitedly, rushing forward. When he sensed the abundant life energy emanating from Tang San, his heart finally settled. Tang San smiled slightly and said, "Sorry for making you worry, Grand Elder. I need to enter seclusion immediately. The second elder will explain everything to you. Don't worry, it's good news." As he spoke, he patted the Grand Elder on the shoulder, and then walked toward the ancestral tree's true form. Though Tang San hadn't been gone for long, after experiencing such a major upheaval, the ancestral tree's husk had also undergone some changes. The massive ancestral tree had become even more translucent, and the crystalline blue color of its trunk had deepened, giving off an aura of profoundness. Tang San could even sense that the ancestral tree's sentience had increased a little more. Of course, the ancestral tree couldn't fully awaken, much less regain its previous divine consciousness, even if Tang San's chaos energy increased 100-fold. This was something dictated by the limitations of this plane. The power of the planar ruler was the power of heaven and earth, and it would not tolerate an independent and intelligent life form that could fully harness it. This was a key characteristic of planes outside of the divine realm. No one could change this, not even Phelan planet with its immense energy. This was a law of the universe. Thus, Tang San wasn't worried about the ancestral tree fully awakening. Quite the opposite, with its sentience slightly elevated, the ancestral tree's instincts had grown a bit stronger and more sensitive. Its energy had also become purer and grander. Tang San approached the ancestral tree, raised his right hand, and pressed it against the enormous tree trunk, silently conveying his will through his divine consciousness. The death of the adamant nymph emperor was a great benefit to the ancestral tree as part of the planar ruler. How much fortune and life force had been returned to the plane with the fall of an emperor. Moreover, Tang San had used the ancestral tree's power to extract a third of the life energy from an entire main city, returning it to nature. This made the ancestral tree acknowledge Tang San even more. At the same time, Tang San had also brought back the Blue Gold Tree clan members who had been captured in Adamant City. Streaks of blue light flew out from Tang San, landing around the ancestral tree. Some of the Blue Gold Tree clan members were still alive, though extremely weak, while others were nothing but broken limbs. Tang San placed these blue gold trees around the ancestral tree, allowing its power to nourish them. This was one of the Blue Gold Tree clan's innate abilities, Return of Spring. Even if only pieces of them remained, as long as they still had some life in them and they were under the blessing of the ancestral tree, there was actually a very good chance that they would recover. The aura the ancestral tree transmitted to Tang San became even gentler, and he could also clearly feel that the life energy he was receiving was purer and more powerful. He was getting closer and closer to being fully acknowledged as the representative of the ancestral tree. He sat down cross-legged in front of the ancestral tree, leaning his back against it. As he absorbed the pure and boundless life energy, he immediately entered a meditative state. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to start absorbing the Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline imprint immediately, or the seal would no longer hold. He'd been too optimistic earlier. As it turned out, the power of this bloodline imprint exceeded the combined power of all the other imprints within him. Such was the gap between the 11th and 12th orders. He had to somehow create a balance between the other bloodline imprints and the Adamant Nymph Emperors, or he was bound to face serious problems. With the ancestral tree's high-level life essence protecting and assisting him, absorbing and integrating the bloodline was a far safer process. Additionally, with so many Blue Gold Tree elders standing guard, there were no worries at all. While Tang San was immersing himself in cultivation elsewhere, Jean Miaosan was vividly recounting everything that had happened in Adamant City to the Grand Elder. All the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan were present. Ever since the sudden eruption of the ancestral tree and the bloodbath in Adamant City, everyone had gathered together, ready to respond to any situation. At this moment, as they listened to Jean Miaosan's account, the elders looked at each other and saw the same immense shock in each other's gazes. Especially when they heard that Tang San had taken the initiative to declare war on Adamant City and even the Adamant Nymph Emperor, they involuntarily held their breath. Even though Tang San and the other elders had already returned, so it was clear who the winner of that fight was, they still couldn't believe such a thing had happened. It was truly terrifying. Had he failed, wouldn't the Blue Gold Tree clan have fallen back into danger? The ending of the story was undoubtedly perfect. With the Soul Capturer Nymph Emperor bearing witness, Jean Miaolan had killed the Adamant Nymph Emperor. Or rather, the ancestral tree had slain this powerful emperor, who had always harbored hostility and greed toward the Blue Gold Tree clan. They had returned safely, and the situation in the Solstice Empire was certain to undergo a dramatic shift. The Grand Elder trembled with excitement, and the 8 blue spikes on his back quivered continuously. He did it. He really did it. He took down our greatest enemy, and considering what happened, there is no stopping the clan leader from becoming the official city lord. Skytree City is secure now, truly secure. As long as the clan leader can become an emperor soon, our Blue Gold Tree clan will surely rise to be one of the strongest clans in the world. No one will dare to bully us again. This is wonderful, truly wonderful. Even though the second elder had experienced the events firsthand, hearing Jean Miaosan's recounting still left him unable to contain his excitement. He stepped forward, grasped the Grand Elder's shoulder and said, "We need to start preparing. I expect the other main cities will soon return our clan members. We should be ready to welcome them. I believe that from now on no one will dare to touch our people. Our clan members will no longer have to hide within the inner city. In the future, we will lead our people to spread the ancestral tree's brilliance across the entire demon continent and even overseas." Jean Miaosan chuckled and said, "Let's not rush things too much. We can talk about all that after my brother becomes an emperor." The Grand Elder exclaimed excitedly, "That's for sure. The clan leader is destined to become an emperor." Over at the ancestral court, with the fall of the Crystal Demon Emperor, 2 emperor positions have opened up. Our Solstice Empire was already aiming to replace the Crystal Demon Emperor and increase our overall power. The competition was far beyond our abilities to deal with. Just think of that Scorching King from the Scorching Sunflower clan. But things are different now. For one, with the Adamant Nymph Emperor's fall, another emperor position has opened up. The more positions available, the easier it is to compete. And then with the ancestral tree awakening, the plant-type emperors are sure to show us a little deference. Most importantly, the ancestral tree just killed the Adamant Nymph Emperor. Who would dare deny our clan leader this position? As long as the clan leader becomes an emperor, Skytree City will undoubtedly rise and become a top-tier main city. Ha 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 ha. The Grand Elder laughed heartily, and the other elders couldn't help but feel equally excited and overjoyed. A few days ago, the thought of killing the indestructible Adamant Nymph Emperor would have seemed like a madman's dream. If they had held a vote among the elders, not a single one would have supported Jean Miaolan. But with or without their support, he had succeeded, and for the Blue Gold Tree clan, this was nothing short of a revolution. As the clan leader himself had said moments before slaying an emperor, it was their time to leave the shadows and walk proudly in the sunlight. At this moment, Tang San had no time to care about how excited the Blue Gold Tree clan elders were. He was facing a serious problem. Focusing his mind inward, he examined the state of his own body. With the nourishment of the ancestral tree's life essence, Tang San's life energy was far more powerful than before, and his body was in absolute peak condition. His physical strength and toughness had become formidable, thanks to the many bloodlines belonging to demons with powerful physiques. However, even with all these factors combined, it was still impossible for him to fully contain the bloodline imprint of an emperor. The gap between the 11th and 12th orders was even greater than the difference between the 1st and 11th orders. Forget about an 11th order being challenging an emperor. Under normal circumstances, Even 111th Order beings could not do anything other than pester the Emperor for a brief while before being massacred. This was why the Adamant Nymph Emperor hadn't even considered Tang San a threat. It was simply on a different level altogether. Thus, even though Tang San possessed many bloodline imprints, including transcendent bloodlines, it was absolutely impossible for him to fully absorb the bloodline power of a 12th Order being. That had never been his intention. What he needed to do now was create balance. In other words, make sure that the combined power of all the other things he possessed was above that of the Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline imprint. Under normal circumstances, achieving this balance would have required Tang San to become an emperor, but right now he was far from meeting the conditions for that. This was a serious issue. Even with the immense life energy from the ancestral tree, the Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline imprint was still constantly stirring. If he wasn't careful, it could lead to a major disaster. While the elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan were celebrating joyously, Tang San found himself in a dire situation. His best option right now was actually to release some of the Adamant Nymph Emperor's power. This would make it much easier for him to bear the remaining bloodline energy, and it would be the safest approach. But if he had intended to take the safest approach, he could have just killed Jin Chenggu. Why go through all the trouble of fighting an emperor? He had gone to great lengths to succeed and things had gone swimmingly. If he couldn't make full use of his gains, wouldn't all that planning be for nothing? No, that was simply not an option. But since he didn't want to release the energy, he had to find a way to contain it. So, as soon as Tang San began meditating, he started extracting power from the Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline imprint, integrating it into one of his other bloodline imprints. Tang San's bloodline imprints were a far cry from what they used to be before godhood. And now, the discerning eye of heaven had also advanced to the 11th Order. Although the discerning eye of heaven wasn't as useful in direct combat as some of his other bloodline imprints, its polar luck domain was priceless. In certain aspects, it could be considered the most powerful of Tang San's bloodlines. Then there were his two transcendent bloodlines, the Chaos Blue-Silver Emperor and the Golden Armor Transformation. These two were both at the 11th Order through Tang San's own cultivation, and they were immensely powerful beyond question. After these, in terms of power, came the Chrono Croc Transformation and Peacock Transformation. Surprisingly, it wasn't the Immortal Flame Phoenix bloodline but these two. The reason was simple: Tang San's new divine artifact, the Spacetime Lighthouse. By using the Spacetime Lighthouse as an amplifier, both the Chrono Croc Transformation and the Peacock Transformation could be used far more effectively, with the former being just as strong as a first-tier bloodline in spite of only being a second-tier one. In fact, Tang San had even considered using the Spacetime Lighthouse to merge these two bloodline imprints into one, creating what would naturally be called the Spacetime Transformation, a transcendent power among transcendent powers. But time and space were two of the most fundamental mysteries of the universe. To merge these two bloodline imprints was beyond Tang San's current cultivation level. Forget about emperorhood. He would likely need to return to become a god king once more to attempt such a feat. The Spacetime Lighthouse was different, as its basic material had the powers of both time and space to begin with. Otherwise, if he had to merge them himself, he would have had no chance. Altogether, Tang San currently possessed 10 bloodline imprints. Now that he was at the 11th Order, he could afford adding another one, but that was not going to be the Adamant Nymph bloodline. The Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline was naturally a first-tier bloodline, but not all first-tier bloodlines were equal. In Tang San's opinion, in its pure state, this bloodline wasn't particularly useful. Its greatest advantage was boosting his defensive capabilities, but that was that. Integrating it in the free slot was certainly possible, but the problem was that Tang San preferred to leave one slot open just in case. For instance, when he encountered Jin Miaosan, it was only by absorbing her Blue Gold Tree bloodline that Tang San was able to conceal his true identity before the ancestral tree, leading to a series of important benefits. Therefore, this slot had to remain available for emergencies. Among Tang San's bloodline imprints, the best choice to combine with the Adamant Nymph bloodline was the Lion Tiger Transformation, which offered both offense and defense. The Dragon Rock Transformation was also a possibility, but its primary function lay in flight, and activating it would cause wings to appear, making it harder for Tang San to conceal his identity. Additionally, its flexibility would be diminished. As for the other bloodlines, they were even less suitable. Tang San didn't dare to fuse more transcendent bloodlines right now, so the golden armor transformation wasn't an option. Before killing the Adamant Nymph Emperor, Tang San had already decided on the fusion path for the Adamant Nymph bloodline. Thus, now that he was in a safe and quiet place, he immediately used the Lion Tiger bloodline imprint to absorb the power of the Adamant Nymph bloodline. The latter's aura was incredibly dense, and as soon as it came into contact with the Lion Tiger transformation, it immediately began to take effect. Under the pressure of Tang San's powerful divine consciousness, the two started to fuse. However, during this process of extraction, the originally sealed Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline imprint began to stir restlessly. Even Tang San found it difficult to suppress it. He had to use the power of all his other bloodlines to block it, preventing the aura from bursting out and overwhelming him. Thankfully, the life energy of the ancestral tree washed over his body repeatedly, helping him endure the strain. The initial part of a fusion was always the most challenging. His body, despite its strength, struggled to withstand the impact of the Emperor-level energy. Tang San constantly felt as though his body might explode from the pressure. Yet his mind remained calm and steady. He had thoroughly prepared for this moment, and if his body couldn't withstand it, he had other methods at his disposal. The space-time lighthouse guarded his sea of consciousness. As the Adamant Nymph bloodline power began to lash out wildly, space ripples appeared around the yet-to-be-fused bloodline imprint. Tang San channeled the power he couldn't bear into the space-time lighthouse and sent it to another space. Basically, what he was doing was creating a pocket of space that allowed him to store the energy he couldn't process immediately. It was just a temporary fix that could not be sustained indefinitely, but it was exactly the help he needed right now. With the assistance of the divine artifact, Tang San's condition stabilized once more. The Lion Tiger bloodline imprint, stimulated by the infusion of Adamant Nymph bloodline power, began to radiate increasingly intense light. At the same time, Tang San could feel the changes within himself, from his bones to his meridians, and then to his internal organs, muscles, and skin. Every part of his body was continuously being nourished. As this nourishment progressed, his body became increasingly tough. Every part of his body gradually took on a translucent quality, and the more transparent and brilliant it became, the more solid it felt to Tang San. The power of the Lion Tiger bloodline originally felt rather wild and unrestrained, albeit majestic. After merging with the Adamant Nymph bloodline, it gradually became more weighty, and a domineering aura began to emerge. One was violent, the other was heavy, and their combination began to exude an aura of truly sovereign-like authority. This proved Tang San's sharp judgment. The compatibility between these two bloodlines was exceptionally high, even surpassing the Golden Mammoth and Behemoth bloodlines he had fused into the Golden Armor transformation. Furthermore, Tang San now had the Chaos Blue-Silver Emperor to mediate the fusion, and perhaps even more importantly, the fortune he controlled through the discerning eye of Heave was far greater. As a result, the fusion process was exceptionally smooth. However, the energy of the Adamant Nymph Emperor's bloodline was simply too vast. There was no way to fuse the imprint directly with the Lion Tiger bloodline imprint as he'd done with the others. Instead, he had to draw power from the former and infuse it into the latter. As the energy from the Adamant Nymph bloodline reached parity with the original level of the Lion Tiger imprint, Tang San halted the process. The impact of the Adamant Nymph's bloodline imprint on his body had weakened somewhat. But in Tang San's estimation, somewhat meant around 1/10. Such was the terrifying gap between the 12th Order and the 11th. Reducing the power by 1/10 provided some relief for Tang San, but didn't completely solve the problem. Meanwhile, the Lion Tiger transformation had evolved into a new transcendent bloodline, the Adamant Lion Tiger bloodline. This time, the fusion was completed without any particular celestial phenomena or rejection from the plane, as it was done under the protection of the ancestral tree's life energy. Tang San could clearly sense that Phelan Planet's rejection of him had diminished significantly. This was one of the enormous benefits brought by the ancestral tree's acknowledgement, perhaps even more important than the life energy itself. Had he attempted this just a few weeks before, he would have been struck down by the plane without a doubt. But even so, Tang San found himself in a dilemma. What could he do with the remaining Adamant Nymph bloodline power? While he could in theory seal the remaining power indefinitely, Maintaining the seal would consume a great deal of his mental energy, to the point where he wouldn't even be able to fight properly. If he were to engage in battle at full strength and lost control of the seal, he wouldn't even need to lose the fight. He would be blasted apart from the inside. Should he release it? He was truly reluctant to do so. After going through so much to obtain the power of an emperor, how could he just give it up? But continuing to absorb it wasn't an option either. If the power of the adamant lion tiger transformation imprint was out of balance, it would simply collapse, and he would be forced to restock on lion tiger bloodline power. If worst came to worst, he would have to attempt a fusion of 3 bloodlines, allowing the golden armor transformation to absorb some of the energy, and then even feed some to the dragon rock transformation. However, he had no idea whether this would come with side effects. The only way to know was to try. As Tang San was contemplating the best approach to this fusion, a voice suddenly echoed in his divine consciousness. "Daddy, let me handle it." Hearing this voice, Tang San couldn't help but shiver. Crystalline. Ever since the Crystal Demon Emperor fell, Crystalline had been in a deep slumber. Throughout Tang San's cultivation, he could always feel Crystalline absorbing his energy. He had nothing against it. After all, she was not absorbing much, and she was now truly reliant on him. She no longer had a physical body, and since Tang San was not in a divine realm, he could not help her gain one either. Of course, he was not worried about that. When he returned to his world, he would simply take her with him and let her out there. But the fact of the matter was that she was still taking up one of his precious bloodline imprint slots, and since he hadn't absorbed her bloodline power, the imprint was not his to control. He certainly wanted to know if there was anything that could be done, but with her fast asleep, he had no chance to find out. Now, with Crystalline suddenly speaking, Tang San was startled. "Crystalline." Tang San called out tentatively. "Yep, it's me, Daddy. You're really amazing. You've managed to combine all these mixed powers in your body. I couldn't even do that back in the day." Tang San smiled wryly and said, "You can stop calling me Daddy, okay? You're an old granny." Crystalline giggled. "Heh, this is this and that's that. The old granny died, no? I am little Crystalline, and you're the one who hatched the egg, so you're my parent. Also, I was born from the power of fortune, and I can already tell that recognizing you as my dad comes with a lot of benefits, so you can't get rid of me even if you want. Anyway, let me help you solve this problem first. Okay?" As Crystalline spoke, Tang San immediately felt a change in her imprint. It had always just shimmered, not doing anything in particular, but now it began to spin rapidly, and a pulling force suddenly emerged from it. "Use your divine consciousness to guide the adamant nymph bloodline imprint toward me. I'll help you hold it." "All right." Tang San didn't hesitate. With the discerning eye of heaven, he could naturally detect danger, even if that danger came from a being of the Crystal Demon Emperor's caliber. If Crystalline had any ill intentions, he could sense it instantly, so he was not worried about her trying to pull a shenanigan on him. Using his divine consciousness, he guided the adamant nymph bloodline imprint closer to Crystalline's imprint. At once, the imprint emitted a soft glow, enveloping the adamant nymph bloodline imprint and pulling it in. A crystalline light gradually appeared around the imprint, subduing its previously raging aura, which quickly diminished and then vanished. Tang San stared in astonishment at Crystalline's imprint. It was as if the imprint had a bigger imprint growing from it. Although its own energy was far weaker than the adamant nymph imprint's energy, the latter was now immobilized. Tang San no longer needed to do anything. The adamant nymph imprint was now perfectly stable and had stopped bothering him just like that. "Whenever you want to absorb its power, I'll release some for you. When you don't want to absorb it, I'll keep it sealed so it won't affect you. Once you break through to the Emperor level, you can absorb it all at once. Then the Lion-Tiger transformation will undergo a major evolution, and you'll have a transcendent bloodline at the Emperor level." "How are you doing this?" Tang San asked curiously. "Well, how do you think I was able to copy multiple bloodline abilities at once before?" A thought flashed in Tang San's mind and he blurted out, "Sealing." Crystalline giggled. "Heh, as expected of my daddy, you're so smart." "Yes, it's sealing. The strongest bloodline ability is sealing. When I copied other bloodline abilities, I was actually doing something similar to what you're doing. I was absorbing bloodline power, sealing it as imprints inside me, and then using my own bloodline power to stimulate them, allowing me to use the sealed abilities. I can still use that ability now, actually. If needed, I can even let you access the Emperor-level power of this imprint. The only problem is that I don't have Emperor-level power myself, so I have to burn the imprint in order to do that. The more you use it, the more energy you'll consume, so you won't have as much to absorb in the future. I see, so that's what it was. Tang San had long been wondering how exactly the Crystal Demon Emperor was able to copy other people's abilities. As it turned out, it was not much different from what he was doing, except she only had to take a little bit of energy, and all the power behind the multiple abilities she used came from her own cultivation. Her sealing power was certainly extraordinary. Otherwise, Crystalline wouldn't be able to suppress an Emperor-level bloodline imprint with her current strength. After all, even though the bloodline power was not inside the body of an Emperor, it was still nevertheless the full bloodline power of an Emperor, and not one drop less. Indeed, this sealing ability was approaching the level of a natural law. Although the Crystal Demon Emperor had fallen and no longer had her apex-level cultivation, the reincarnated Crystalline still retained every bit of her knowledge of the profound principles that stood behind her sealing ability. "Can I use this sealing power of yours?" Tang San asked Crystalline. "Well, not you personally, but you can ask me any time. Just tell me what to seal, and I'll help you with a single thought. For now, my power should be able to seal anything below the 12th order. As for how long I can do it, that will depend on the opponent's power. But since I'm busy keeping the Adamant Nymph imprint under control, I can only help you with sealing, not with copying." "Well, not that you need that, you have more abilities than I ever had myself. You can think of my sealing as a short-term control ability. The weaker the opponent, the longer they'll stay sealed. I can also help internally, for example, if any of your bloodline imprints act up, I can bring them under control as I did just now. If you want to use my sealing ability to its full potential, you'll need to become an Emperor first. By then, I'll be able to restore some of my former strength as well. But there's also something else. Unlike your other bloodline imprints, I can fight on my own. After all, unlike the others, I'm an intelligent being. I'm your daughter, Right. Tang San now finally knew what to do with this wild little daughter of his. Essentially, it was like having a mini Crystal Demon Emperor available to fight for him. Of course, for now, she was only a great demon king just like he was. Moreover, since she was helping seal the Adamant Nymph imprint, she couldn't join the battle for now. But once Tang San broke through to the 12th order, he would essentially have the Crystal Demon Emperor as a summoned ally. Though she was far from her peak form, she would still be an Emperor-level fighter, and with her ability to copy other powers, she could easily duke it out with ordinary emperors. By the way, you really are planning to leave here in the future, right? Yes, once I've regained my former strength, I'll be leaving. Are you still coming with me? Tang San asked. Of course, I'm coming with you. I don't want to live another life counting down the days. No matter how strong you are on this plane, you can't escape death. I've lived so long and I've already died once. I really don't want to die anymore. I'll follow you from now on, so you better take care of me. I could even be your mount if you want. Tang San couldn't help but feel a bit helpless. I can take you with me back to my world. In the divine realm where I reside, there's no need to worry about minor things like death. So long as it exists, we are eternal. But for now, I need you to help me on this plane. Whether it's becoming an emperor or restoring my former strength, there will be great challenges ahead. Crystalline's voice took on a more serious tone. When I first followed you, I sensed that you were different. I hoped to use you to prevent other emperors from detecting me until I could restore my emperor-level strength and live a new life. But now I know that following you is my only chance at eternal life. I just hope that if you become a god king again and return to your divine realm, you'll grant me my freedom. Agreed. That's my promise, Tang San replied solemnly. Okay, Daddy. Crystalline's voice returned to its playful tone.
A mutually bénéficiale alliance.
One was the supreme god king of the divine realm, the other was once the most powerful being on Phelan planet. Neither of them was stupid. They had mutually beneficial goals, so it only took a brief conversation to establish a mutually beneficial partnership. The Crystal Demon Emperor understood clearly that achieving eternal life required significant effort. Tang San becoming an emperor was no easy task, as evidenced by the tribulations he had faced when ascending to godhood. Moreover, his actual aim was far beyond the emperor level, so the future was bound to be challenging. Yet the Crystal Demon Emperor decided to take the gamble, because she despised the inevitability of time's erosion. Power did not guarantee longevity, but this was precisely what Tang San offered her, the possibility of eternal life, or at least a long enough life that she'd stop caring about it. And as she sensed him growing stronger and continually reshaping everything, her confidence in him only grew. Thus, when Tang San faced a difficult decision, she stepped forward to offer her help and made a promise to him. This was directly related to Tang San's killing of the Adamant Nymph Emperor. The Blue Gold Tree clan and even the soul-capturing Nymph Emperor believed that it was the ancestral tree who had slain the Adamant Nymph Emperor, but as part of Tang San's body, Crystalline knew better. She had witnessed firsthand how Tang San meticulously set up traps for the Adamant Nymph Emperor, using every resource and ability at his disposal to kill an emperor with only 11th order strength almost without risk. This made her truly feel that he was worthy of being her master. As the former strongest being on this plane, the Crystal Demon Emperor was undeniably proud. When she first chose to follow Tang San, her primary intention was to use him, nothing more. But now, by revealing her true innate ability to Tang San and expressing her intentions to fully support him, she also showed that, for the first time, she truly acknowledged him. Tang San naturally figured this out in an instant and didn't mind at all. Gaining the recognition of someone as powerful as the Crystal Demon Emperor was never going to be easy. But with her assistance, some things would be quite a bit easier, and his chances of becoming an emperor were now even higher. The subsequent cultivation became much easier. Tang San continued to absorb the life energy of the ancestral tree, stabilizing the newly fused indestructible lion-tiger transformation. As his third transcendent bloodline, it undoubtedly pushed his overall strength to a new level, greatly enhancing his physical resilience. Tang San wasn't in a hurry to end his meditation. Taking advantage of this honeymoon period with the ancestral tree, he absorbed as much high-level life energy as possible, accumulating life force and nourishing his body. Moreover, if he couldn't absorb all the energy, Crystalline could help seal some of it for later. Tang San wasn't sure if he would get another opportunity in the future. While Tang San was enjoying his cultivation, the Solstice Empire was thrown into an uproar. News of the ancestral tree's full awakening quickly spread across the demon continent, with the emperors of the Solstice Empire reacting the most strongly. They were none too pleased. What blew the horn of the ancestral tree's revival was the sacrifice of an emperor's life, and with one emperor gone, their hard-won advantage had vanished. Meanwhile, the Empyrean Dominion didn't gloat over the Adamant Nymph Emperor's death either. After all, the killer also hailed from the Solstice Empire, and the pressure they felt from the ancestral tree was far greater than that of the Adamant Nymph Emperor. Its reputation as one of the three ancestors was one thing, but the fact that it was capable of squashing an emperor just like that was downright frightening. As a result, the number of ancestral court meetings had increased tenfold, most of which were focused on the Blue Gold Tree clan. On the third day after the death of the Adamant Nymph Emperor, the ancestral court officially released a statement. The message outlined the crimes of the Adamant Nymph Emperor, including his abduction and mistreatment of the Blue Gold Tree clan members. It also announced the awakening of the ancestral tree, and invited Jean Mirolin to report to the ancestral court as soon as possible. Furthermore, they issued yet another decree, this time a hard and clear-phrased order that left no room for interpretation, forbidding any clan from abducting or harming the Blue Gold Tree clan. Any such action would be considered an act of aggression against the ancestral court. All Blue Gold Tree clan members who had already been captured were to be returned to Skytree City immediately. The ancestral court's public announcement undoubtedly set the tone for its future policy. After all, confirming that the ancestral tree's killing of the Adamant Nymph Emperor was an act of justice and officially declaring the ancestral tree's awakening showed that they were fully ready to acknowledge things as they were. Meanwhile, the death of the Adamant Nymph Emperor forced everyone to reevaluate the Blue Gold Tree clan. Once viewed as weak by the powerful, this clan had suddenly become a fearsome force. It had been thousands of years since an emperor had been killed, and the ancestral tree had taken one down right after returning. Just how much resentment had it been harboring? As a result, whether it was nymphs or demons, all clans that had imprisoned members of the Blue Gold Tree clan quickly began to rectify the situation through their trading caravans. They scrambled to return the captives, fearing a repeat of what had happened in Adamant City. Details of Tang San's visit to Adamant City had already spread far and wide. Under the ancestral tree's brilliant light, any captured members of the Blue Gold Tree clan would be discovered. They simply couldn't be hidden. And if they were found, it would likely lead to a life-or-death feud with the Blue Gold Tree clan, which nobody wanted. After all, the ancestral tree had drained 30% of Adamant City's life energy, and that was clearly being merciful. If it could take 30%, couldn't it take everything? Such power was truly terrifying. Some wise analysts speculated that the ancestral tree couldn't truly awaken, as it was bound by the limitations of the plane. Even if the Blue Gold Tree clan could make use of the ancestral tree's power, the range where this power could be used likely didn't extend far beyond the proximity of the tree itself. But these were just speculations. Who could prove them? No one would have believed the ancestral tree could kill the Adamant Nymph Emperor, and yet barely a few days ago, Adamant City was drenched in blood. No one dared take risks anymore. Faced with the Blue Gold Tree clan that had suddenly risen to power, most chose to observe from a distance or even extend friendly gestures. The elders of the Blue Gold Tree clan felt this shift most acutely. On the third day after Tang San's return, Skytree City began to grow lively, with various races starting to migrate there. Most of them were actually from Adamant City. After Tang San issued his death threat, some of those who had fled Adamant City chose to return, but others, seeing that the rise of the Blue Gold Tree clan was unstoppable, decided to relocate instead. They liquidated their assets in Adamant City and moved directly to Skytree City. What the elders never expected was that on the 7th day after Tang San entered seclusion, representatives from Adamant City arrived. Jin Chenggu personally led a delegation, bringing 100 carts full of precious materials as compensation to the Blue Gold Tree clan. With the utmost sincerity, he apologized on behalf of the Adamant Nymph clan. Tang San was in seclusion for his cultivation, so the elders naturally wouldn't disturb him for such trivial matters. They assured Jin Chenggu that they would pass on the Adamant Nymph clan's apology and accepted all the gifts, but they did not allow Jin Chenggu or the other representatives to enter the city. Jin Chenggu didn't press the matter and humbly left with the delegation. The Grand Elder couldn't have been more pleased at that moment. In the past, Jin Chenggu wouldn't have even spared him a glance. While Jin Chenggu came to offer compensation, gifts from other main cities arrived in an endless stream. These included representatives of major city lords and large trade caravans, all bearing extremely valuable gifts. The reason was simple. They were congratulating Jean Miarolin on becoming the leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan and the Lord of Skytree City, and conveniently establishing a relationship with this new promising power. For a while, Skytree City was the hottest topic in the entire Solstice Empire. However, all these gift-bearing envoys were destined to be disappointed, as none of them were able to meet the new leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan. During Tang San's seclusion, the most exciting event for the Blue Gold Tree clan was the return of their lost kin. Those who had disappeared weeks, months, or even years before were coming back. Some were still alive and whole, some were missing limbs but still showed signs of life, while others were just dead fragments. But in any case, the important part was that they were all returning home. Those who could be healed would be healed, and those who couldn't would at least be buried in the land of their kin. The caravans that brought them back did not know where they'd been before. The Blue Gold Trees had been delivered to their headquarters with instructions, and that was that. This gave them some measure of reassurance that the Blue Gold Tree clan wouldn't come knocking on their doors. Just as one of these caravans entered the boundaries of Skytree City, Tang San suddenly opened his eyes. In the next moment, before any of the elders could notice, he vanished into thin air. A young but sickly-looking Blue Gold Tree lay down on a carriage. Though the shackles that had bound him had been removed some time ago, he still hadn't fully adjusted, perhaps because he had been confined for too long. His sea of consciousness had long since been shattered, and because of that, his thoughts were extremely disjointed. He had lived in that dark, sunless place for many years, and his blood had been periodically extracted. Only during those times had they provided him with some nourishment. He had no idea how much time had passed. He couldn't even remember the reason he had left his homeland in the first place. At some point, for reasons unknown to him, he was finally released. When he saw sunlight for the first time, his eyes nearly went blind. It took him 3 agonizing days to adjust. Only when they started feeding him again did his body begin to recover, and his dwindling life force gradually stabilized. As the journey continued, his body slowly healed, and at least he no longer felt like he was on the brink of death. But where were these people taking him? He didn't know. Though his sea of consciousness had been shattered, he was nevertheless a blue gold tree, and their recovery ability was practically unmatched on the continent. Over the past few days, he had gradually regained some of his strength. Everything except his sea of consciousness was on the path to recovery. But did any of this really matter to him? He had long since accepted his fate. He no longer had any hope or dreams. He had forgotten what the purpose of his life was. He felt empty, soulless, with nothing left to live for. Having his sea of consciousness shattered wasn't so bad. It meant he no longer had to think all the time, and that brought some relief. When you're no longer forced to be conscious all the time, torture becomes a lot easier to endure. Suddenly, silver light flickered, and a figure appeared silently in the carriage. His arrival didn't even cause the carriage's weight to shift. The dazed, young blue gold tree turned his vacant gaze toward the unexpected figure, not making a sound. In fact, even if he had, it wouldn't have mattered. Inside the carriage, a silver barrier had already enveloped them, not allowing even the slightest bit of aura or sound to leak through. "What's your name?" A pleasant voice rang out, not in the air but in his mind. The blue gold tree opened his mouth but didn't respond, as he had long since lost his tongue. His captors had no need for him to speak. Tang San furrowed his brow as he looked at the pale, lifeless young man before him, whose eyes were dull and spiritless like a walking corpse's. He placed his hand on the young man's shoulder and channeled his divine consciousness into his body, assessing his current state. What horrible decay! That was Tang San's initial impression. He wasn't sure what his captors had done to him, but there was no doubt that he had endured gruesome torment. A flash of anger crossed Tang San's heart as he was reminded of humans who had once been treated as slaves, and those that still were treated as slaves. But at the same time, the young man's body still held vast life energy and was slowly regenerating. That was not why he was in this state. It was because his sea of consciousness had been shattered, and the fragments he was holding onto were simply not enough for any kind of complex thought process. The reason Tang San had rushed over was that his divine consciousness had been covering the entire city, using the ancestral tree's energy. He had been waiting for this particular aura to appear, the aura of the ancestral tree's bloodline, which was present in only one person apart from himself and Jin Miaosan. Although Tang San couldn't yet confirm whether this blue gold tree was indeed Jin Miaolan, he was certain that his bloodline power was directly inherited from the ancestral tree. There was no doubt about that. Additionally, Jin Miaolan had 6 spikes on his back, indicating that he used to be a nymph king. Jin Miaolan had left his homeland as a 10th order nymph king, so there could be no mistake. Tang San began to inject divine energy and life energy into Jin Miaolan, helping him heal, especially focusing on the long-damaged sea of consciousness. Soon Tang San realized that Jin Miaolin's sea of consciousness had been too severely damaged, and for far too long. Healing such a severe spirit injury would not have been much of a challenge if Tang San still had his God King level cultivation, but he did not. In order to fully restore it, he would need a very long time. Tang San used his divine consciousness to barely connect with the broken fragments of Jin Miaolin's sea of consciousness. "Brother, I believe you are Jin Miaolan. If you can understand me, just nod. I am now the clan leader of the Blue Gold Tree clan, and I will help you." Jin Miaolan stared blankly at him, opening his mouth but unable to speak. Finally he nodded. "Name's familiar. Jin Miaolan. Is that me?" Tang San nodded slightly and sighed softly. "Come with me." In the next moment, a silver aura enveloped him and Jin Miaolan, and they vanished into thin air. After 2 teleportation jumps, Tang San reappeared in the Kali Mountains. As he arrived, he dispelled his disguise, returning to his true form. The life energy within the Golden Valley was denser than ever, but for Tang San now, it wasn't as impressive. The life energy he had felt in Skytree City had been far stronger. The Crimson Fox girls had all gone to live in Kali City, and only warriors from the Lion Tiger clan remained to guard the Golden Valley. But even their numbers were few. Most of the Lion Tiger clan had also moved to Kali City, which was a better place to live. Now, Kali City was under Mei Gongzi's complete control, even if she didn't directly manage its affairs. Jin Miaolin stumbled slightly as he walked, clearly no longer accustomed to walking. However, upon entering the Golden Valley, a glimmer of vitality returned to his eyes. The lush vegetation made him feel at ease. This felt somewhat like home. Tang San led Jin Miaolin to a massive tree with golden branches and leaves. The Lion-Tiger clan warriors guarding the area had already noticed them, but when they saw that it was Tang San, they immediately relaxed and nodded in greeting. Tang San nodded back, then stopped with Jin Miaolin in front of the golden tree. Jin Miaolin looked at Tang San, then at the golden tree in front of him. Tears suddenly welled up in his once lifeless eyes. Golden trees were everywhere in Skytree City. They were a vassal clan of the Blue Gold Tree clan. Feeling the rich life energy this tree exuded, and sensing his own life force slowly recovering under its influence, Jin Miaolin seemed to realize something. Tang San looked at him seriously and said, "Jin Miaolin, listen to me. Your sea of consciousness has been shattered. It will take a long time to recover, and it will require an exceptionally strong divine consciousness to achieve that. Right now, my divine consciousness is not yet strong enough to put back together another divine consciousness, but when I become an emperor, I will help restore yours. For now, I need you to stay here and recover. Don't worry about your clan. Everybody is fine, and things will only get better from here." Jin Miaolin stared at him blankly, clearly not understanding what any of this meant. Tang San sighed and patted his shoulder. Having found Jin Miaolin meant that the final flaw in Tang San's identity, as the Blue Gold Tree clan leader, was resolved. Jin Miaolin would stay here to rest, and once Tang San became an emperor, he would naturally bring him back to his people. With the last issue resolved, it was now time for him to return to the ancestral court. Upon returning to the Blue Gold Tree clan, Tang San found the elders already gathered before the ancestral tree, awaiting his arrival. His sudden disappearance had startled them, but fortunately, he hadn't been gone long. Seeing him return safely, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Tang San did not resume his cultivation immediately. After several days of seclusion, he was in absolute peak form. His cultivation had reached the middle level of the 11th order, by his own assessment, but even the most powerful 11th order experts of demon and nymph clans couldn't begin to compare with him. Each of his 10 bloodline imprints had been strengthened, and with the augmentation of the ancestral tree's pure life energy, they were also more stable. As for his physique, it was leagues beyond what he'd previously achieved. The rewards from this journey were immense. Even meeting the Fire Dawn clan and being able to communicate with the Fire God Scepter paled in comparison. Even the formation of a new transcendent bloodline wasn't even his greatest achievement. What he valued most was the discerning eye of heaven. As the discerning eye of heaven advanced, it became far more than a mere tool for controlling fortune. Tang San began to understand why the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor held such an esteemed position among both demons and nymphs. The ability to control fate was vast and all-encompassing, a power capable of influencing the very fabric of reality. The limit of this plane was the 12th order, or the nine-tailed celestial fox like the Celestial Fox Demon Emperor was. However, if Tang San could eventually restore his God King level strength, he would surely be able to push this ability even further beyond. Perhaps he would then be able to peer into the fortune of the entire universe. Indeed, as Tang San's cultivation gradually returned, his thoughts extended beyond mere survival in this plane. He began contemplating the state of his own divine realm, considering how it could continue to develop and remain stable once he returned, and especially how it could resist the cosmic laws to avoid the tragedies of the past. The invisible cosmic laws governed everything. If Tang San could have eyes that could peer into destiny, if he could use the subtle shifts in fortune to predict when something major would occur, then navigating the future would become far easier. Thus, Tang San was most pleased with the discerning eye of heaven's evolution. After all, it was exceedingly difficult for him to come into contact with high-level bloodlines from the Celestial Fox clan. Once members of the Celestial Fox clan reached the Demon King level, they guarded themselves tightly. They were always accompanied by powerful protectors, making them nearly impossible to approach. The fortune Tang San had gained thanks to the ancestral tree was something he couldn't have gotten otherwise, save for visiting the Hell Garden once more. Aside from the discerning eye of heaven, the most valuable asset was the bloodline imprint of the adamant nymph emperor. Though it was currently sealed by crystalline, it remained a power at the emperor level, effectively serving as a reserve of strength for Tang San. Once he broke through to the 12th order, he could immediately draw upon it to boost his physical strength and raise at least one bloodline imprint to the 12th order as well. Even among emperors, the adamant nymph emperor's defense was something simply peerless. A faint smile appeared on Tang San's face, and a soft glow shone in his eyes as he looked at the gathered elders. I will conclude my cultivation and prepare to report to the ancestral court. The elders were all overjoyed, and the Grand Elder beamed. Then we must congratulate you in advance, clan leader, on gaining the ancestral court's recognition and officially becoming the Lord of Skytree City. Your evaluation will surely go smoothly. You wouldn't believe how many rare treasures the major cities have sent us recently, all hoping to build favorable relations with us. They've even invited us to visit and engage in exchanges with their cities. Tang San chuckled slightly and said, "Right about that. Before I leave, there is one matter I'd like to discuss with you all." "Please speak, clan leader." The elders' expressions immediately became serious, and they bowed slightly in respect. The reason our Blue Gold Tree clan has been coveted by so many other races is because of our natural wealth. They are willing to go to extreme lengths, even harming our people, to extract this life energy for their own advancement. This is especially true for mineral-type nymphs and the likes, whose awakenings require an immense amount of life energy. There's an old saying, one must remain vigilant even in times of peace. Certainly, the awakening of the ancestral tree has brought us temporary stability. Under its light, no one dares to act against us for now. However, this is only a short-term solution, not a long-term one. Moreover, even if the larger races refrain from attacking us, there are still individual powerful beings who might not have the same qualms. The ancestral tree's light, though bright, cannot illuminate every corner of the continent. With such vast amounts of life energy at stake, we must always be on guard against lawbreakers willing to take risks. No matter how careful we are, there will always be oversights, and in the near future, our people are likely to face danger once more. We must address this issue at its root. Hearing Tang San's words, the elders couldn't help but look puzzled. How could this problem be solved? It had plagued the Blue Gold Tree clan for countless years. Their immense life energy was the very foundation of their existence, and they couldn't just drain it away. Forget about the ancestral tree partially awakening. Even if it had been at full strength, it would not have been able to solve this issue. At the same time, now that the ancestral tree had intimidated all other races and even the ancestral court, the elders were somewhat reluctant to discuss this problem. After all, there didn't seem to be any immediate risk. The Grand Elder said, "Clan leader, the best solution to this issue is for you to become an emperor. If you are a powerful emperor, then with your authority and the ancestral tree's deterrence, those vile individuals wouldn't dare to harm our people." Tang San shook his head in reply. "Even if I become an emperor, that would only be treating the symptoms, not the root cause. As long as our clan possesses this high-level life energy, people will hunt us down to take it. But there is actually a way to solve this. Hear me out." The elders, filled with curiosity, nodded respectfully. Tang San said, "I want our clan to become the holy clan of the entire demon continent, a clan that all other clans must revere. That way, all our problems will be solved, and our people will have the highest level of safety." "Holy clan?" Jean Miaosan asked curiously. "Big brother, how can we become something like that?" Tang San smiled slightly. "By ensuring that the ancestral tree's light truly shines on every corner of the continent." His gaze swept across the elders as he continued. "What the others covet most is our life energy, right? So what if we provide them with a stable supply of life energy? How would they perceive us then?" How would that work exactly?" the Grand Elder asked, his expression growing serious. With the slaying of the adamant nymph emperor, the Blue Gold Tree clan's status on the continent had been completely transformed. Tang San's prestige within the clan was at its peak, and the Grand Elder feared that he might introduce some radical development that could affect the future of the entire clan. Tang San said, "Our life energy comes from the earth, from the plane, and from the demon continent. Our innate ability is life absorption, and the ancestral tree has bestowed upon us the power of life deprivation. No matter where we are, as long as we root ourselves, life absorption will always occur, allowing us to gather the life energy of a place within ourselves. A portion of the vast life energy we accumulate will be absorbed into our own bodies and used for cultivation, while the excess energy will be filtered through our bodies and naturally dispersed. This is why the life energy in Skytree City is so abundant. So, Grand Elder, let me ask you, if you were to root yourself in another main city, what would happen? Naturally, you would be able to absorb the life energy of that place to nourish yourself. As long as no one interferes, you could rely on the life energy of that place to cultivate and improve yourself. The brilliance of the ancestral tree may not be present, and this might make you think that your rate of improvement may slow down, but the truth is, we have many clansmen in Skytree City, and there's only so much life energy here. It's certainly greater than anywhere else, due to the ancestral tree's presence, but is it truly enough for all of us to cultivate? It is a known fact that our clan is not adept at combat. Even with high cultivation, our actual combat power is just terrible. We do not pose any threat. But we don't have to. What if we have our clansmen stationed in each of the main cities? Those scattered clansmen would undoubtedly find it easier to raise their cultivation level compared to gathering here. After all, in Skytree City, most of the life energy is absorbed by us, the ones at the 10th order or above, leaving only a limited amount for the ordinary clansmen. But the demon continent is vast, and it gathers the majority of the plane's fortune. If we let our clansmen spread out to the major cities, wouldn't that greatly benefit our cultivation? Moreover, during our cultivation, we only require the highest tier and most essential part of the life energy in any given territory. The excess life energy we absorb will naturally be released. In the short term, it might not have much effect, but over time, our presence will be able to change the intensity of the city's life energy, benefiting all the races living there. Wouldn't you agree that this is something those cities would desire? At the same time, we would also be spreading the brilliance of the ancestral tree to even farther places. In the past, this kind of plan would have been a fool's errand. We were simply too weak, and if we'd gone to another main city, we would have simply become prey for a few powerful beings. Not only would we have been unable to do anything productive, but our very lives would have been forfeit. But now that the adamant nymph emperor has been slain by the ancestral tree, things are different. No one would dare to easily make a move against our clan, at least in the short term. In this situation, we can use the excuse of giving back to the main cities and other races to carry out this plan. We can take control of the life energy in the major cities in a short time and give them enough time to feel the benefits we bring. By the time I ascend to emperorhood, with the ancestral tree's power, your cultivation levels will also rise substantially, and you will bring even more life energy to the cities and benefit all beings within them. Tell me, if that happens, then won't we become holy in their eyes? The one true way to ensure our clan's safety is to make all the races understand that they don't need to plunder or kill. As long as they protect us, they will benefit just by being near us. This is the fundamental path. After hearing Tang San's words, the blue gold tree elders present fell into a brief silence. Some of the more quick-witted elders already had a glimmer of excitement in their eyes. There was no doubt that taking the initiative to move to other main cities came with significant risks. In the minds of the blue gold tree elders, this was a hard fact. But if everything Tang San said could truly be realized, then the blue gold tree clan would surely experience unprecedented growth. The brilliance of the ancestral tree would indeed shine across every corner of the continent, and the blue gold tree clan would become revered by all races. Clan leader, if we can truly achieve what you've said, it would be a tremendous blessing for our clan. This is something even the ancestral tree itself could not accomplish in the past. However, whether we're talking about the Solstice Empire or the Empyrean Dominion, all races and clans have their own selfish interests. Will they really accept this plan? If the ancestral tree falls into slumber again and they suddenly turn against us, what will we do? And even if it doesn't fall into slumber, there are still risks. I fear it won't be so easy to implement. Tang San nodded and said, Grand Elder, I fully understand your concerns. That's why this is just a general direction for now, and the specific execution still needs to be discussed. First and foremost, we must ensure the safety of our clansmen. And for that reason, I'm going to the ancestral court to report and discuss this plan with the emperors there. Only if we gain the support of all the emperors will I proceed with it. Otherwise, the whole plan will be shelved. But I have confidence. As long as the ancestral court isn't a pack of short-sighted fools, they will surely understand the benefits this plan brings. It would provide the greatest support for the ancestral court and contribute immensely to the stability of the continent. If we can get the approval of the emperors, then the first ones we should send out will be us, the elders. Only we have the strength right now. Once we are firmly rooted there, our less powerful clansmen can also go. The Grand Elder still furrowed his brow, and it wasn't just him. There was a trace of worry in the eyes of all the elders present. After all, they had been oppressed for decades already. Now, being asked to take the initiative to station themselves in the main cities, they truly felt anxious. Tang San said, "Everyone, there's no need to rush. We will make decisions after I report to the ancestral court. Please be assured. I may be the clan leader, but I will not make such major decisions on my own. We will only proceed if the majority of the elders agree." Hearing this, the elders' expressions immediately relaxed, and their goodwill toward Tang San grew even stronger. The Grand Elder said, "Clan leader, you're right. If your plan can truly be successfully implemented, then our Blue Gold Tree clan might even become the largest and most powerful clan on the entire demon continent. However, we are indeed concerned, and we need to see what kind of guarantees the ancestral court can give us." Tang San nodded slightly and said, "I'm fairly confident I can persuade the ancestral court, but let's wait until I return before discussing further. And speaking of that, I'm preparing to set off immediately to report to the ancestral court. There's no need to visit the other main cities anymore." The trip to Adamant City was not the first step on a long road. Tang San intended to make an example out of them, so that no further steps would be necessary. As people said in his previous life, he had killed the chicken to scare the monkey. The Blue Gold Tree clan's prestige had already been established, and the ancestral court was surely experiencing some internal turmoil. However, a month had passed, things had settled somewhat, and it was clear from the actions of the main cities that the ancestral court's stance toward the Blue Gold Tree clan was favorable. Now, it was once more Tang San's turn to act in his official capacity, following in Mei Gongzi's steps to acquire the ancestral court's approval. And it wasn't just that. He had to operate in such a way as to maximize the benefits for the Blue Gold Tree clan, and ideally even allow humans to gain something from it. The reason behind pushing the Blue Gold Tree clan to settle in every main city was precisely to allow the distant human world to also receive support. Human vitality was indeed too fragile, and this was a key reason for their slow development as a race. After experiencing the abundance of life energy from the Blue Gold Tree clan, how could Tang San not concoct a plan with that in mind?